of the YouTube.
Okay, I'm pressing it right now. It's pressed.
Like
what
a
is
good
up,
panini.
What is up, everybody? What did you say?
Like a good panini. You said the button is pressed.
Oh, I see. Well, they didn't hear that part. No one even knows what we're talking about now. But we are live.
Well, that's it. People feel like they're walking. You walk into a bar, you hear interesting conversations happening. You feel good about your choice to go to that bar. That's what we're doing here.
I see. It's kind of like the start. There's this famous podcast, or at least to me, called The Hollywood Handbook, and they always start every episode where like one of them pretends like they're in the middle of some like story. It's like, so I say to Jennifer Aniston, I say like, Jennifer, why are you? And it's just like some crazy story that's always right in the middle. So I guess it was kind of like that. But anyways, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us for the live show. It's going to be an interesting one.
Hi everybody.
Yeah. I guess we'll get into it. I've been having a fun chat. I've got my potential future next week Dynasty League opponent Shane in the chat, and my co-manager Matthew. We're still like finalizing our semifinal here, and it's still kind of close. So, Brian, if I zone out a little bit to look at if like Jake Middleton got a block, that's the reason why.
Does he go by Jake or does he prefer Jacob?
You know what? I don't know. But if he doesn't block enough shots today, then I'm just gonna call him something naughty. I don't know.
Jacob Middleton, more like Jacob Lowerton.
Yeah, mid is a term like that the Gen Zs use for something that's like boring or like not impressive. You say that.
That's a good one.
This podcast was mid, so hopefully this episode won't be mid.
I mean, like that's not the greatest insult. Like, is it above mediocre?
I think that's basically what it is. I think that's what
mediocre.
It's
okay.
The mediocre's bad. No one wants to be mediocre.
Oh no, I don't want to be mediocre. But I was hoping that mid was like still like, yeah, that was average. Like mid is average is good. Mid is mediocre.
Another person in the chat, by the way, is Shams, who destroyed me this week in the Babupful. Not only did my team underperform, but Shams' team, I don't know, I want to say like overperformed, but very well performed to a crazy extent. And so congrats, Shams. I'm wishing you all the best.
Have mercy. So Elon, now that it's all over, do you regret not having traded?
I regret having traded Jack Hughes and David Pastrnak for Mika Zibanejad and Patrick Kane. That's actually the worst trade I've ever made in my history of playing fantasy hockey, and it's not even close.
Jack Hughes and that's a at the time Jack Hughes was just like twinkle in our eyes.
At the time, you were telling me that I like got this like rip off, like a rip off in my benefit. Yeah. You were like, you were mad at Mason for even making that trade.
Yeah, I was.
That trade killed me. This past week, take a look. Zibanejad and Patrick Kane did nothing. They just like left me hanging out there, hanging in the wind to get destroyed by Shams.
Yeah.
Two useless people. And now I'm stuck with them as my keepers.
Mason knows better than both of us.
It's really, he's amazing, and I have nothing to say. Like, it's just I got bamboozled. I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, I think I talked about it with John, my co-manager, and he also agreed, and your co-manager agreed. So like Mason just was a really great. We should ask Mason how he did it.
He knew that. Well, I don't know. Pastrnak at the time was in like a bit of a cold streak.
Yeah,
because he was off the top line,
and Jack he still
Hughes
is.
Yeah, and he's been amazing.
But he's doing good.
Jack Hughes was off. Well, Jack Hughes was injured for a bit and just sort of hadn't taken off yet.
Yeah.
And oh well. What are you gonna do, right? That we're just having a good time here, so it's all just for fun.
We're trying.
Yeah, I think that the best thing you could do is lose and have fun. Then you're having a good hobby. Like if you lose and you hate yourself, it's probably not the right hobby for you.
Oh, that's
not to discourage people from this hobby, right? Because then we would lose our business.
Put it on a t-shirt. Put everything you just said on the t-shirt, not just like the catch, not just like the one slogan.
Okay.
The slogan plus all the follow-up. We'll
need a designer to fit that all in. All right. Anyways, ready to start the show here?
Yes.
Okay.
Brian's like he traveled in time to the 60s. I assume that's about the background. Maybe my clothing. Okay.
All right. Here we go. Okay. Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keep It Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who are going to try to skill it up and hopefully not get punched in the face. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me, as always, is my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, the poobah of prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everyone. Wow, what a playoff introduction from on all counts, Elon. I am fired up, like much more so than I was about 45 seconds ago. I am just jacked. I'm ready to roll. Imagine someone listening to the show for the very first time, and that's what they get when they hit play. It's amazing. What a great intro. Best intro in podcasting. Thank you, Elon, for that. And thank you, Elon, for bringing you and your fantasy knowledge here to the show this week so we can help all our listeners continue their quests for fantasy hockey glory. Most of you are in your playoffs right now or heading towards we're into the last couple weeks of the fantasy hockey regular season. 3 weeks from now is like the garbage time where teams start resting their players for the playoffs and making strange lineup choices that everyone gets mad about if they're still counted in your leagues. But we are laser focused on doing whatever it takes to help you and whatever weeks are left in your fantasy leagues to bring home that gold.
Sorry, the door just opened to let the dog out. Yep, exactly. And we're going to mirror that sentiment in this episode because we're going to do things a little differently today. We're going to be a little loose. There's no point looking into some cold streak or some hot streak and really diving into the numbers of the time on ice over the whole season, or, you know, if the person's been shooting above or below expectation. All we care about is this next week or these next 2 weeks. So we're going to be laser focused on what's like just happened. In fact, the plan for this week's episode is Brian and I are just going to do some scoreboard hopping. We're just going to look at the box scores from some of the games over the weekend, see what happened, and see if there's anything to read into it as we're deciding on our final moves that we're going to make for our fantasy playoffs. So I'm really excited to try this, a new concept. It's a show that's less planned out and structured than we're used to, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So Brian, I'm ready to get into it with you in just a sec. Of course, first, let's mention that one place where there's a ton of structure, but also a lot of fun. I don't even know what I'm getting at here. A lot of fun. What's the opposite of structure? I don't even know. A lot of fun.
Looseness, improvisation.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, whatever. Fun. Off the cuff content. It's all there at dauberhockey.com. We're super proud to be presented by them and to have been presented by them all this season, all of the previous few seasons. It's a fantastic site to get everything you need to be successful in fantasy hockey. The articles every day, the daily ramblings, the tools at Frozen Tools just cannot be beat. Check it out, dauberhockey.com. If you're not going there, you're probably not as successful in fantasy as you can be. But okay, Brian, let's get into it. So yeah, I'm thinking we're just going to look at the scores of some games since Friday and dive into who got points, who didn't, who maybe had a surprising amount of ice time, who played well, and see if there's anything we could read into it going into next week. I want to start with a game that happened on Friday with the Nashville Predators playing the Buffalo Sabres, because that was the Predators' last game of the week. So, you know, we'll try to get the most recent game for most of these teams. But Nashville obviously had a slow week, which meant, like we talked about on the last episode, a lot of people might have been dropping Predators, you know, because this was a do or die week for them. And then now next week, the Predators play 4 times. So now's your chance to jump up in and grab whatever Predators you're impressed with. Though their last game, they lost 4-3 to the Buffalo Sabres. And like kind of how it's been for a while now, there's kind of nothing here, I think, in terms of players that you might be interested that may also be available. Like the top line has been Forsberg, Duchesne, and Johansson. I guess Johansson might be available in some leagues. He picked up a couple of assists actually in this game, including an assist on a Forsberg goal. Mikael Granlund had a disappointing game. We talked about how he's kind of fallen off ever since he's gone off that top line. He's still on the top power play. Every once in a while he gets a point, but he's obviously a lot less exciting. And Brian, by the way, this is all for everyone listening, a show where we haven't prepared the questions and answers in advance, so Brian has no idea what I'm going to ask him, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm thinking right now, if I had Granlund and Johansson in my free agency, I think I'd go Johansson. And I guess another possible guy that could be of interest is Tanner Jeannot, right? He's available in a bunch of leagues, and he's scored all of these goals. I think I'd have Jeannot over both of them, right? If we're trying to rank which Predators to go after.
I think so. You're looking for whoever is on the top line in Nashville. Like if you're talking about Ryan Johansson and Mikael Granlund, at one point they were both rosterable because Ryan Johansson was doing great things with like Yakov Trenin and Luke Kunin on what I guess functioned as the second line in Nashville, but we liked Granlund then. And then Johansson came up to the top line, and then we didn't like Granlund and we liked Johansson. Then Johansson went back off and we said, forget him. And now he's back on. So really, this is just like, it's like the Chandler Stevenson sort of situation. You want the guy on the top line, but if he's not on the top line, if he's not centering that Duchesne Philip Forsberg, there are few other places to produce in this Nashville depth chart. So that's why you do want to make sure you have the right Nashville centerman at all times. And right now, the right Nashville centerman. And right now, the right Nashville centerman is Ryan Johansson. So yeah, go ahead and make sure you have him and that you don't have Mikael Granlund. Although, Granlund still is on the top power play unit. That's one thing that both these guys do hang on to as they are rotated off the top line. But there's still not necessarily a consistent production coming from that top power play deployment. And then, Tanner Jeannot, we've been talking about him pretty regularly for the last little while. The goals keep coming. He's now got 5 goals in his last 8 games. But the thing about that is they came on 11 shots and they picked up 3 more and didn't score. But he had 5 goals on his last 14 shots. I'll include the last 3 shots that didn't go in just for fairness. So he's scoring more than he should. And there aren't a whole lot of assists coming either. And I guess why would there be? Because he's playing with Yakov Trenin and Colton Sisson. So Tanner Jeannot is someone who's had some nice percentages working for him. He's been shooting 20% pretty much for his career, which is an even 82 games at this point, actually. And so we don't know if he is a highly efficient converter or if he is going to regress to like half that. But the last time we talked about Jeannot on the show, it was that, well, he only takes 1.5 shots per game. So even if he's converting 20% of the time, you still have to wait a few games, or you should have to wait a few games to see a goal from him with those shot rates. So not so terribly exciting. I think I'd probably consider him about even with non-line one Granlund. But of course, going back to the main point of this, Ryan Johansson stands alone.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like I like Jeannot just because he seems to. I know you're saying with the percentages and all that, but like if you look at just the total goals on the year, Jeannot scored more goals. If I'm going for goals and just basing it on what he's done so far, I like that. But also, I guess
Granlund has more assists.
I know, but goals are worth more in the cupful. So I guess it depends what you're going for.
Well, also, what's worth, 41. It's a lot more assists for Granlund. I shouldn't argue. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. I think that's a very good point. So it's a dice roll at this point, but you're getting 4 games from a potential Nashville Predator. So I guess you can pick your poison between the 3. All 3 are likely available in a bunch of leagues. Jeannot obviously also gives you the hits. Shane is mentioning...
Granlund also gets you some decent hits too. I'm not like, by the way, advocating hard for Mikael Granlund. I'm not that interested in both these guys, although their schedules are good. I'm just saying they're about even. Granlund all of a sudden has decided to start hitting. He had a run of 12 hits in 3 games recently, which I know Jeannot doesn't too. I get it. So Jeannot, more hits, as many shots, and more likely to score a goal. And Granlund's your assist and power play point guy.
Hey, yeah, I'm not trying to push you anyway, Brian. I want to get your opinion. You're right. Maybe Granlund is more likely to get you a point. Jeannot just, I don't know. He's felt so hot. Like I had him for a while, and then I dropped him when he was on a bit of a cold streak, and he started scoring a bunch of goals. And so maybe that was the reason why I was just like, I'm not gonna let that happen to me again. And when he was a free agent for me, I was like, this time I'm getting him, and I'm holding on. So I'll die with Jeannot, or I'll win with him. Also on the Predators, Shane mentioned Ekholm here in the chat. By the way, Brian and I will definitely be up for suggestions from the chat of who to talk about, because like I said, it's more of a loose episode. But yeah, I've seen Matthias Ekholm is a guy who generally in fantasy has been worth rostering in a lot of leagues over the years, but this year was just like especially boring, not doing anything for a large chunk of the season. But I've seen recently his percent rostered has been increasing on Yahoo. I guess a lot of it due to a recent 3-assist game that he had, and also he's been taking some more shots randomly recently, like 3 and 4 shot games, and before he was like 0 and 1 for pretty much the whole season. I've been pretty much completely uninterested in Ekholm, even with this recent stretch, just because I guess I've had the whole season to convince me that he's not worth it. But is there anything here for this 4-game week?
For 4 games, if he keeps averaging over his last 11 games, you've got Ekholm averaging over 3 shots per game, 35 shots in 11 games. So maybe if you want to see if you can keep those shot totals coming, and then you have a chance at a point, but honestly, no greater a chance than any of the other games. Matthias Ekholm has really made a name for himself as being somebody who is completely useless most of the time, but sometimes goes super hot and is like the hottest thing in fantasy And he's not actually doing that this time. He just had that 1 3-point night. And this is actually his worst offensive season, basically in the last 5 years. He hasn't paced for fewer than the 30 points he's pacing for right now in a full 82 games. Normally, I would expect him to be closer to 35 or 40 points. So, yeah, there's a chance he'll be better than he has been the rest of the way. But that's still not necessarily fantasy relevant. And you're really only interested in him if he is consistently putting those 3 shots on goal through the week. So I guess I'd take it one game at a time with him, because even the hits and blocks aren't there, as you might expect from a defenseman who's known for his defensive prowess. That's not the game he plays. So lots of minutes and suddenly a few shots a night. But like you said, Elon, he's averaging like 1.5 shots per game before this nice little run he started. So I would be wary of going out and adding Matthias Ekholm and expecting a whole lot of contributions to my roster.
Yeah, and then here's something that we can't really advise on. You're obviously not going to drop UC Saros at this point in the season. You're going to ride with him. But it's kind of scary probably to have him at this point, just because out of nowhere, after an amazing season for almost the whole way through, he's been kind of bad over these last couple of weeks. In fact, in his last 4 starts, he's only had one game where he was above a .900 save percentage. He had a good game against the Sens, but that last game against Buffalo, he let in 4 goals and only made 35 saves. So I don't know. It's concerning. But again, what are you going to do about it at this point? You're obviously going to just hold on and hope he does better.
That's all you can do. You've ridden him this far. He was doing huge things for the Predators all season long before the All-Star break. So basically going up to February 1st, he was a .927 goalie, had won 24 out of his 38 games that he'd played. 24, 11, and 3 overtime losses. That's an incredible record for a goalie on a team that wasn't expected to be that great. You've got Philip Forsberg going off, Roman Josi playing like a god, and Matt Duchene sort of rejuvenated. But all that together still didn't make the Predators a really great hockey team. It was UC Saros, and that's painfully clear now that he is a .906 in his last 19 starts, going back to the second week of February with a 9-10 record. So the guy's sub 500, .906. And my note on Saros, as I was seeing this happen over the week, was, I wonder if his value is falling for drafts next year. There's always a chance he's getting tired. In fact, Elon, a theme as I was going through box scores from games over this past weekend, there's a lot of goalies faltering right now. We'll talk about it through the show, but I wonder if a lot of them are hitting a wall, and a lot of the ones who are faltering are guys who have played a lot of games, or maybe just we weren't expecting to be that durable or sustainable. So UC Saros, it's really interesting, right? Because when you're drafting that workhorse goalie at the start of the season, you're like, yeah, I want all that volume in all those games. And what if that workhorse goalie gets you just far enough to get you to the fantasy playoffs, and then you lose him because he's exhausted and he can't keep it up? How valuable is that workhorse goalie really? And I ask that question just because of all the different guys we're seeing fall off who've had huge workloads this season, but can't string together a couple good starts.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Andrei Vasilevsky kind of stands alone, right? Like, he's just year in, year out playing so many games and doesn't fall off. Even Shesterkin is struggling lately. Before, remember, we were talking about, probably it was like we jinxed him. We were talking about, okay, he's finally joined Vasilevsky as a tier 1, sure thing goalie. Now he's kind of struggled because you're right. There's a difference between being able to play well for 3/4 of the season and then being able to play well for an entire season as a workhorse. So maybe, Brian, the advice here, which isn't going to be helpful for people now, but for next year, draft your workhorse, let him ride you right to the trade deadline, and then trade him to someone for a skater, and then pick up some goalie out of free agency. Man,
I that would take some nerve, right? Some chutzpah. And I think that would be a really nice move, though. If you can, I remember I had someone, I think it was Ian, offering, or Garrett, in my cupful division, offering me Igor Shesterkin a month or two ago. And it felt silly to turn him down because he had just been lights out, but I just couldn't buy into the deal. It wouldn't have mattered one way or the other whether I took it or not. In fact, I lost to Garrett this week in our consolation bracket matchup, so that was a bummer. But Shesterkin didn't really factor in that hugely into it, and I wonder if that's a really great strategy, is to get that workhorse, let him up his value all season long, and then pull the plug right as you see that workhorse starting to tire. Something to think about as a strategy point for next season.
Yeah, and I guess let's just jump around now to the Rangers since we're talking about Shesterkin. So today they just got defeated by the New York Islanders 3-0. Another loss for Igor. In fact, he only faced 18 shots, it looks like, and he stopped, 15 of them, which wasn't enough. But obviously, even if he only stopped 17 of them, it wouldn't have been enough because the Rangers got shut out. Which is not great news for the Rangers. They're a team that has a lot of players that people are excited to roster, though they've been without Ryan Strome, which has caused them to have to shake their lineup around. And I wonder if the absence of Ryan Strome is maybe causing some of this like recent lack of scoring.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I'm just maybe you could check while I'm rambling here. You can look into how they've been doing since Ryan Strome got injured. But like in today's game, they ran with Zibanejad, Kreider, and Frank Vetrano on one line, and then Panarin was playing with Andrew Kopp and Johnny Brodzinski. And like we like Andrew Kopp here on the pod. He's had good stretches, but he's also gone cold. And Johnny Brodzinski is someone who was available as a free agent with swing eligibility in my dynasty league as early as this past week, which was very rare for anyone. Which just goes to show how little anyone thought of him. Now he's been since added, and I don't know, obviously for a good reason since he's in a good spot in the lineup, but he hasn't really been doing anything with it. All of a sudden you take out Ryan Strome, this lineup, I don't know, looks kind of thin to me. Like those don't look like great line mates for Artemi Panarin, and he's still been hot overall, but his last 2 games, pointless. On Frozen Tools it shows 8 points in his last 6 games, but that doesn't include today's game. Yeah, they just got shut out by Philly, and they got shut out by the Islanders. I don't know, that's not great. Are we concerned about Panarin?
Well, I don't know first that we can attribute much to Strom. He's only been away a couple games. And the pattern I see more is that when Shesterkin plays badly, the Rangers lose. And that's been sort of the case all season long. Actually, even when he's played well, the Rangers could lose. Basically, it was Shesterkin needs to stand on his head, and then the Rangers have a fighting chance to win. And they've built their team that way. They've built their team with Igor as their backstop. But lately, he's having starts that aren't even giving the Rangers that chance to win. 833, 792, 879, 765. These are just over his last 7 or 8 games. And in fact, going into tonight's action, so it's Sunday night as we're recording this, Shesterkin had an 887 save percentage over his last 8 games, pulled twice, which is concerning. And we talk about workhorse and workload. This is the heaviest workload that Igor Shesterkin has ever had, right? Remember when we talked about him coming into the league and like how he had this career of basically being a brick wall everywhere he went for every game all season long, and like shutout king, unbeatable. And the caveat was that when he gets to the Rangers, he's going to be asked to take on a big workload, and we haven't seen him do that. Last year, he played 35 games. This year, tonight, he's playing his 46th game already, which is 7 more than he ever played in the KHL. And then he played 5 playoff games on top of that, but he played 39 in the regular season for St. Petersburg SKA back in 2016-17. So, I mean, it's a real testament to Shesterkin that he still has a 934 save percentage this season, even with this recent, cold snap that he's working through, and still a 75% quality start percentage. This guy's just been lights out all season long, to the point that you can't even tell there's been a bad run lately. If you're looking at his overall numbers, that's rare to find a goalie that incredible. 934. So I'll be interested to see if he can find his mojo the rest of the season, or if this is just a case of, the guy is running out of steam. He's never played this much before. The Rangers are demanding a lot of him night in, night out. And I think maybe they need to start demanding a little less, or at least have a plan B for Shesterkin isn't quite able to steal as many games as he was stealing for them.
Yeah, well, there was a stretch this season where it was basically, if you were like a gambler, if the Rangers were playing with Shesterkin in net, I was gonna say in net because it's like Shesterkin, but like with playing with Shesterkin versus playing with Georgiev, it's like the odds like completely shifted, right? It's like you have a completely different team depending on if Shesterkin was playing or if Georgiev was playing. They decided to keep Georgie at the trade deadline, and maybe that makes sense because they're going to need to give Shesterkin some rest to go into a potential playoffs. But yeah, looking into next week now, the Rangers play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I at one point was really high on like Kopp and Vetrano. By the way, I was mistaken. That game against the Islanders was on Friday. They're playing today against Philly, and they're currently losing 2-0. So we'll see if they can figure out a way to score a goal versus Martin Jones of all people and not get shut out. They've taken 30 shots at this point. We're almost in the second period, and they've taken 30 shots, but nothing has gone by. So that would be terrible if they got shut out 2 days in a row. Panarin's taken 4, so he's doing his best. Are we still excited, Brian, about like your Vetranos and Kopps? Those would be like those 2 top 6 guys that after the trade deadline were looking like slam dunks. Kopp playing with Panarin, Vetrano playing with Zibanejad. Zibanejad, by the way, totally blew it for me. We were talking before we recorded in the pre-show on YouTube how I made a trade for Zibanejad in my keeper league, and this was the quarterfinals this week, and I lost. I probably would have lost anyways because Shams' team was amazing, but didn't help that what I got 1 assist, I think, from Zibanejad in 3 games like going into today. Barely any shots. I don't know. Bummer for me, but maybe that's also due to Ryan Strome being off the top power play. Maybe I'm giving Ryan Strome too much credit. But anyways, let's look at the actionable pieces here. Vetrano and Kopp might be out there, might be droppable. They only play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week, so it's not like an insane week, and some of those might be busy days for you. So how excited are you about these like fringe top sixers on the Rangers?
I'm a little more into Kopp because he is on that top power play with Ryan Strome out. So I'll still, co-sign on him. And for what it's worth, the Kopp, Panarin, Brodzinski line, I'm looking at the stats for tonight so far. They have 7 shots in the 7.5 minutes they've played and only 5 against. So they're winning the shot and shot attempt battle. They're putting a lot of offense. They're throwing pucks on net. So I feel like that's a good sign. And like you mentioned, Panarin already has 4 shots and we're just over halfway through the game. So if you're playing with Panarin, there's still a good chance that one of those shots is going to go in or be a juicy rebound for you to have to work with. So I'd be into Kopp. Vetrano, I haven't changed my tune on Vetrano from him being sort of like a high-end streamer. He has at least put up 2 or more shots in 6 of his last 6 games, actually. So at least he's reliable there, that he's going to get you at least a couple shots. And yeah, has a chance at a point, but I would prefer Kopp, and I wouldn't stretch too hard to get Vetrano on my roster. But Kopp, I might, depending on the other options, just because of that top power play spot replacing Strome.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I guess I'll take Kopp too. Vetrano maybe could be good for more shots, but you don't want to bank only on a few more shots. Philly, by the way, the team that's beating the Rangers 2-0 right now. Interesting to see their 2 goals have been scored by Owen Tippett and Cam York. So the young players on Philly getting an opportunity to show us what they can do with Claude Giroux out of the lineup. So I guess we'll see if obviously those guys are probably available mostly because Cam York now the de facto top power play guy. He must have been there for a while. Assuming like Yandel got finally scratched for a game, but already he had been bumped from the top power play for the most part. And Provorov, we've talked at length. So in this show recently, we talked about all these like different new top power play guys. I guess Cam York is one of them, and he scored a goal today. So I don't know, maybe he's someone that people should be looking at in your deeper leagues.
Yeah, he had a run of top power play time, but it's hard to say. I think Philly's either been running a close split or York is on a slightly less preferred unit for their power play over the last couple games. His goal tonight came not on the power play, and he has yet to see a power play shift, but I don't have the opportunities in front of me.
Looks like no one has, by the way.
Okay, so as we've mentioned, York is someone to keep an eye on, absolutely. The funny thing about Provorov, he had like a 3-point night on Friday in that game against oh my gosh. Nope. He had a 3-point night on Saturday. He had a 3-point night on Saturday in the game against Toronto, and a team high 6 shots. 6 shots for Provorov in that game. Actually, interestingly, in that game, Morgan Riley, another defenseman, led Toronto in shots with 6 games. A lot of D-men bombing away, but that was like the one game that Ivan Provorov has been useful to you in any recent history. If he took 6 shots every night, maybe he could score 2 goals every night, but that's unfortunately not what he's doing.
Okay, yeah. Bear with us, live show people, as we try to. Yeah, actually, if you look at that game against the Leafs, the power play time on ice for defensemen is pretty crazy. Ronnie Attard, it looks like, led the Flyers with power play time on ice, which is not something I expected to see. He's obviously someone who's just come to the team from college. I don't know why I said obviously there. I guess obviously in terms of like most people haven't heard of him, so that's your reason why. But yeah, Provorov had the big game there. Maybe it is worth switching over to the Leafs now because they have a huge week next week. They play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So a lot of people like myself who have been zoning in on this week because they had a bye. I've been like looking at the Leafs, and we just got news today that William Nylander is ill and he's not going to play. That's a bummer, right? Okay, so now we have to like make some readjustments for anyone who has Nylander, though maybe it is an opportunity, though not as big an opportunity as you'd think, because he's already been playing on the third line for a while now, and it's been Ilya Mikheyev and Alex Kerfoot playing with Tavares on line 2, and Mikheyev is on a bit of a heater right now. Sorry, everyone. Mikheyev. Is it Ilya? Yeah. Okay. I'm just bringing him up now. Heater for a little while. He was pointless in that game against Philly, though he took 3 shots. Before that, he had a goal and 2 assists against Winnipeg. He also scored against Florida earlier in the week. He's obviously enjoying playing at even strength with John Tavares. So especially now with Nylander ill, like I guess that means that Mikheyev has a better chance of holding this spot through the week. So he and obviously Kerfoot, the Mikheyev is maybe a little bit more interesting to me because you know how I like the shots on goal, and he's been shooting a lot lately. So, you know, Mikheyev's an interesting guy, right? He's been this type of player that we've talked about on and off throughout the season. Runs hot, runs cold. Definitely possible that he'll do nothing in these like 3 games and 4 nights coming up. But he's someone that I'm looking at. Obviously, you want Bunting if you can get him, but you probably can't at this point. But he's taking over on the top power play, according to the practice lines today. But yeah, Mikheyev and then I guess Kerfoot are both at least somewhat interesting. Again, looking at these top sixers, I guess we talked about Kopp and Vetrano. We talked about, you know, whatever, Granlund. You know, we're looking at the guys who are playing in the top 6, but that are maybe available to you in your leagues. And those are the 2 on the Leafs that might be out there for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd prefer Mikheyev to Kerfoot, even though he may be less likely to hold meaningful deployment. I think he's more likely to make the most of it in whatever remaining time he has. So as long as he gets to hold on to being the third wheel on the second line in Toronto here, I'm interested. He's had some good runs there before. Kerfoot is just kind of a boring guy to have. He's the sort of guy who you'll stream in like 6 times, and then the 7th you'll be like, no thanks. And that's the night he goes off for your opponent. That's who Alex Kerfoot is to me. Another name that's I've seen in the box scores lately is Timothy Lilgrin in playing on the blue line. Right, he's got 3 points in his last 2 games, 2 goals and 1 assist, 5 shots. Throws a couple hits a night, blocks every so often. No meaningful power play time, but he is playing on a pairing with Mark Giordano and seeing plenty of ice. Sorry, but he is playing on the top pairing. Nope. But he is playing on a pairing with Mark Giordano, which, you know, I don't know if that really means a whole lot to boost his numbers or anything. But he also came off another nice little recent run where he pointed in 6 of 7 games. So he's like a bottom pairing guy playing 14 to 16 minutes a night. But if you're in a deep enough league and desperate for defense, Lilgren having a nice little run.
Yeah, obviously that's for a really deep ad. If you're looking at your Ronnie Attards or Lilgren, I don't know. We'll save that for the fantasy hockey life people to decide between those 2. I guess also in Toronto, we should mention that in that game on Saturday, Jack Campbell came back to the net. And what do you know? He got a win. So, you know, we've always talked on the podcast, Brian, how sometimes these goalies who are on cold streaks and they get injured, it's almost like a nice little vacation for them. Not only are they healing themselves physically, but they also have the opportunity to heal themselves mentally and maybe come back stronger. And Campbell clearly had something going on with him. I remember there was a quote from him right before he got injured saying, like, don't worry, everyone, I'm going to get better. Like, I'm going to get through this. And so hopefully this is the start. This was a game against Philly, though Philly is beating the Rangers right now for what it's worth. But yeah, he stopped 29 of 32. And I'd imagine Campbell is going to be someone that the Leafs are going to try to lean on moving forward. Maybe they shouldn't because he's injury prone. Mrazek's injured again, so that's a shame. But maybe not. They tried to waive him, so maybe it's, you know, it doesn't really matter now that Campbell's back. Shalgren is there. Obviously, now that Campbell's back, though, you can forget about Shalgren, except for they do play Monday, Tuesday next week. So if you really want to try to game it, it's possible that Campbell gets the game on Monday at Tampa, though that Tuesday game is at Florida. So if you're grabbing Shalgren to get that second half of a back-to-back, you definitely have the possibility of just getting bombed, just like how Florida destroyed Buffalo today, putting 5 goals against our friend Dustin Tokarski.
After putting 7 goals on New Jersey the night before. Like, this is back-to-back performances This team is not tired of scoring goals. 12 goals in the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. One name that stood out for me, Elon, I haven't checked today's box score, so maybe you can enlighten me, but a couple names that stood out from that New Jersey game to me were Gustav Forsling, another defenseman with a team high 6 shots. It was going all over the NHL. Yeah, Elon?
Yeah, no, I'm going to interrupt you to say that Forsling again today against Buffalo had an assist and 5 shots.
Wow.
So out of nowhere, Forsling is this like shooting machine.
So he jumps ahead of Ekholm and Lilgrin and Ronnie Attard as being the hottest waiver wire defenseman right now, right? That we've named so far. If he can keep taking 5 and 6 shots a night on a team that's averaging 6 goals a game this weekend, that's a pretty good spot to be. Elon, after seeing Sam Reinhart do nothing on Saturday, no points, but he had 5 shots in 18 minutes. I kind of felt bad for him. Drew had no points, but he didn't take a bunch of shots like Reinhart did. Did either one fare better today?
Yeah, so today against the Sabres, and again, this 5-3 win, and apologies to Dustin Tokarski. Oh, no, wait, 5-3 win. It looks like Sam Reinhart once again didn't get a point. So that's a shame. He took 3 shots. Oh my gosh, sorry. He took 2 shots, but couldn't get anything by Tokarski. But, you know, this is the kind of thing where I wouldn't be too worried. Maybe it's a little bit of like a St. Louis situation, like different people take turns getting points. Reinhardt's been playing on a line with Marchment and Lundell, which, by the way, Anton Lundell is back, so he's someone that might be interesting to you. Marchment got a point today, so that probably means Reinhardt was on the ice and just didn't get in on the goal. But yeah, I mean, I'd prefer Reinhardt in the top 6. Don't get me wrong.
Same. But it's nice that he's still taking 8 shots. He's still seeing plenty of ice, too. And Marchment and Lundell aren't bad, right? Those are 2 pretty good players that he can still work with. But it was probably just very frustrating. It's like having John Tavares for any of those Leaf games earlier in the season. Speaking of the Leafs, just going back to the goaltending situation for half a second, you know, I was really like, it was fun when Arizona took Harry Sateri off waivers from after Toronto signed him. But I think it would have been more fun if they didn't, and that chaos still reigned in the Toronto crease, especially with Mrazek being injured. Like, I'd love to see what Sateri could do, especially if Campbell isn't totally playing perfectly. But whatever, we've been robbed of that drama, and that's a bit of a bummer. But how about we head over, Elon, to Florida's opponent on Saturday? Florida's poor opponent on Saturday, the New Jersey Devils, where Igor Sharangovich had a 6-shot special as a forward, keeping up with all those defensemen, and of course scored 3 times on those 6 shots, which is great. A huge hat trick for anybody who wanted a big production from someone who likely could have been a streamer in a lot of formats, but has been worth rostering for large swaths of this season. Someone who didn't hit the score sheet somehow when Igor Sharangovich scores 3 goals on 6 shots, Jesper Bratt, no points. Jack Hughes just 1 point on 6 goals. Elon, what did you make of that performance from both Bratt and Hughes?
I mean, nothing of it. Like, I mean, I don't care. I was just one.
Aren't we overreacting to box scores?
Oh yeah,
this
that's
episode?
the point of the show. Well, I'm looking at actually the game today. So today the Islanders beat the Devils 4-3. I'm seeing. I hope all this information we're saying is correct. Normally this show we've got it all double checked here, but it looks to me like the Islanders beat the Devils 4-3 today. And I'm seeing that Jack Hughes only played 10 minutes and 14 seconds. So maybe
he got kneed during the game, but he's okay.
He's okay, you're saying? He came back at some point?
I believe he came back.
Okay, well, and Jesper Bratt, again, no points, though he took 3 shots. I mean, these are guys that I think are at the point where they deserve a really long leash. It's not the kind of player like a Carter Verhaeghe on Florida. He's been cold for a while. I know he did finally get an assist in the last game. He's been cold for a while, so you start to wonder if you can drop him. But someone like Jack Hughes, even forget about it. He's like a superstar. And then Jesper Bratt, he's close to a superstar, though the lines today were different, right? So Bratt doesn't play with Hughes and Sharangovich, so I guess it makes sense. Bratt's been playing with Hischier and Zaka, though Nico Hischier's been really great. Don't you think Nico Hischier kind of gets lost in the shuffle just because of this huge breakout by Jack Hughes, that now Nico Hischier, another first overall pick from just a couple years earlier in 2017, but he's having himself a great year, 18 points or 11, great season. 11 points in his last 8 games. He's currently on a 3-game point streak. He scored today against the Islanders and took 5 shots. He's someone I got as a free agent in the couple. Actually, him and Jesper Bratt. I love the Devils. I think I've probably already mentioned this on the show a few times. But yeah, Nico Hischier is looking really good. It's too bad the Devils suck still. Like, they have all these players that we talk about all the time. They seem very talented, but they still lose pretty much every game. And we've even talked about Nico Dawes being interesting. So I don't know why they suck so much.
Well, they're missing goaltending, because Nico Dawes, aside from that little run, he's no longer reliable or dependable. John Gillies, of course, is not. Andrew Hammond had a really rough start to that game and then was able to sort of hold it together to come up with a decent, half decent stat line compared to how he started the game. But unfortunately, there's nobody in the Devils' crease who can really hold it down. But I liked what you said about Nico Hischier having probably the quietest breakout season in the league. You know, if anyone here thought Clayton Keller's breakout was happening quietly, Nico Hischier has just been totally overlooked. He's almost on a 70-point pace this season when he has been, somewhere between a 45 and 55-point pace for the first 3. Well, he was injured for most of last year, so I'm not even going to count it. So for the first 3 seasons of Hischier's career, he was like this mid-50s guy who we were waiting to break out, right? Like I had him all the time in so many leagues. I was drafting him late as my flyer, and he never broke through. And then last season, just 11 points in 21 games, didn't look good at all, even though he barely got to play. And then, of course, right, when you finally give up hope and be like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I can't assume the breakout is coming. There it is. And it all looks pretty sustainable too. So Nico Hischier looking fantastic. And I don't see any reason to not expect him to be able to do the same thing next year, especially because that top 6 in New Jersey is sort of rounding into being a fuller kind of look. Like you said, he's got to play with Pavel Zacha and Jesper Bratt lately, which is not bad at all if it holds. So Nico Hischier, his draft stock is quietly going up next year. I feel like he might be a draft day steal.
Yeah, he still could be, though it's looking like he may have to pull a little bit of a bigger load for this next week or so, because, Brian, I'm getting some fact checks here in the chat and looking on Twitter. Jack Hughes did end up leaving the game. He came back and then he left again, and now I'm seeing that there's no update on him after the game, so this might actually be pretty bad. All of a sudden, if Jack Hughes is out, I don't want to go too crazy because we haven't had an update yet from the coach, but usually no update isn't good. You probably want an update being like he's walking around, like we hope he'll be back by Tuesday. I don't want to speculate too much, but if he's hurt, that probably is bad for Sharangovich, right? Especially if they keep, Hischier with Bratt, and then Sharangovich now gets a new centerman. I don't know, for some reason I think of Travis Zajac, but he's not on the team anymore, so I'm not sure. Who's the third centerman on New Jersey after Hischier and Hughes? I guess it's like...
Well, Dawson Mercer and Pavel Zacha both play center. They haven't been used at center the whole season through, so I wonder if maybe Zacha is asked to move back to center, and like someone like Andreas Janssen or Yanni Kuokkanen is asked to fill the void.
Yeah, man. So, okay, you'll have to definitely watch Game Day Lines. It's a Twitter account we have that Shams helps retweet things at Game Day Lines. And this is going to be one I'm going to be watching carefully to see what's going on in New Jersey. Hopefully Hughes is okay. That would be a huge loss for fantasy managers, man. Like, I would be so upset if I was riding Hughes. Like, I'm upset about losing Nylander, but I'd be much more upset about losing Hughes. And Nylander is just ill. Hughes, who even knows? So that sucks. Too bad. I guess on D, we've still been talking about Dougie Hamilton. I guess at this point we have to stop talking about Dougie Hamilton, right? He's been kind of disappointing.
I think so. Until something changes, we're just not going to talk about Dougie. We were talking about him on our Discord server this week as being like, what's happening? What does this do for his draft value next year? Which I thought was a really interesting question. I think it hurts it, right? He's not going to be one of those D you reach for in the first few rounds. Elon, you and I were sort of each trying to put down our marker for like which defenseman will go in the draft. And then we'll be like, yeah, maybe it's time to look at Dougie. And you said Alex Pietrangelo, and I said Darnell Nurse as two options where it's like, yeah, you're looking at capped scoring upside from those guys, but reliable peripheral production. And maybe once they're gone, that's when you start looking at Dougie Hamilton, which is a big change from where he's been for the past few seasons. And like Dougie's in this weird pattern where, in Carolina and Boston and Calgary, now New Jersey, he just never gets to run with things. I compared him to being sort of like the Nick Ehlers of the blue line, where he's always playing second fiddle. And I don't know how much of it is by design or isn't. And I know he's proven himself as an elite, top flight power play one quarterback in the league. It would be crazy if the Devils didn't give him that opportunity to be there game one next year. Would they sign him for if not? But this has definitely hurt his draft stock.
Well, yeah, for sure. I guess, like, yeah, we have seen that he's, joined a team. Like when he went to Carolina, Justin Falk was on the top power play, and then eventually Hamilton took over. So maybe they just, like, his coaches always want him to earn it before, like, even in Calgary, right? Didn't he, like, right at the end of his stretch there, take over from Giordano? So It's like, I don't know, for some reason he keeps on having to earn it. It's kind of funny. So Han is saying here in the chat, I wonder if I'm pronouncing that right, but that Hamilton, like, at least he had an assist today. That's almost like a sad thing to, it's kind of like, Brian, remember that movie? I don't even remember what it was called now. It was about a kid who ended up inheriting a baseball team, and he, like, became, like, the coach of, or the owner of, like, the baseball team. Do you know what movie I'm talking about? It's, like, famous when we were a kid. You're muted.
Oh. Was it Rookie of the Year?
So Rookie of the Year, is that the one with the pitcher that had the really strong arm all of a sudden because he, like, injured his arm?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was another one about a kid, maybe in this chat. So anyways, there's a very memorable scene from that movie for me where, like, he had, like, a favorite player on the team and then, like, that player was, like, an old, like, a veteran that, like, near the end of his career, and it was, like, his, like, favorite player. And then he, like, that player, like, got a base hit at some point. Like, everyone was telling him that we need to waive him, like, we need to cut him. And he's, like, the owner now or whatever. It's up to him to, like, waive his, like, favorite player. And he's, like, a teenager or, like, a young kid. And then he, like, got a base hit in the game. It wasn't Angels in the Outfield, Matthew. It's a different one. Anyway, and anyways, the guy got a base hit, and then he was, like, so happy. He was like, see, he's, like, so good still. He's able to do blah, blah, blah. And then, like, I remember his, like, mentor guy was like, it's not Field of Dreams. The mentor guy was then like, the fact that you're so happy that he got a base hit, like, says that we need to waive him because we shouldn't be so excited about something as simple as a base hit. So I'm getting that same vibe from Dougie Hamilton's, like, at least he got an assist. Like, I didn't draft him in the second round in one of my leagues to hope that he got an assist in a game against the Islanders. I'm hoping for, like, some goals, a lot of shots. Oh, he did take 4 shots. Okay. But still, you know what I'm saying, right? And one day we'll figure out this. Brian's not even listening to me because he's just joking around with people about what movie this is. Next time, wait, Brian, you talk about the next player or actually, no, we're going to cut to a break. And while we're on break, I'm going to figure out the name of this movie. So we'll be back in just a sec. In fact, I'm pretty sure my wife and I are going to be recording ad about HelloFresh, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. She's been looking forward to it. So you're going to hear that in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson.
Elon.
League of Their Own. Get out of here. People are lying.
League of Their Own. Okay. Elon, I would love to take a minute here in the ad breaks to toss on, not Sandlot Great Base, but I've seen that one a lot. It's not Sandlot. But I like that you're in the right time frame, James. I would love to just toss out our $1 thing. Elon.
Yeah, go. Okay, we'll do it when we come
cool?
back. Okay.
Yeah.
Movie where kid takes over baseball team. Okay, I'm gonna find it. It's not gonna be hard. Little Big League. That's the movie.
How many people have seen this movie?
I don't know. It has that memorable scene for me. Okay.
Wow. What other, I want a list of your most memorable movie scenes.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna come back. And we're back. Brian, the name of the movie I was referencing was Little Big League. Here is the synopsis. When his grandfather dies, 12-year-old Billy suddenly becomes the heir to the Minnesota Twins baseball team. It's a dream come true for the baseball fan who believes he can get the Twins out of their current slump by managing them personally. Of course, and then it goes on. So everyone can check out Little Big League. It looks like it's available for $4.99 on YouTube at the moment. Speaking of deals, Brian, wasn't there something else you wanted to tell our listeners about?
Yeah, well, I'd like to tell them it was ranked 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience said 53%. So maybe you'll have as memorable a moment with it as Elon did. But just that caveat before you spend your money on the movie. Hey, for $4.99, you know what you could get? By the way, you get an entire off season of Keeping Karlsson patronage. So every off season or fantasy off season from April through August, we flip the switch on our off season special, which is where we offer the usual patron perks throughout the fantasy offseason, discounted price of just $1 US per month. And we do this because, hey, we're still churning out the content, but we want you to be a part of it. too. And this is a great time to just get a feel for the community. It's an even better time in like September and October as things ramp up, but you'll be there for that, we hope. If you join us for the off season, you can get in on things we're doing through the off season. Like, we don't shut down at all. We'll be starting our third annual Keeping Karlsson playoff pool, which is like the best playoff pool design ever. If you're not familiar with it, stay tuned for future episodes and you'll hear about it. You can chat on our Discord server about Keeper Dynasty, hockey headlines through the playoffs, NHL draft, free agency, training camps. We're going to be designing the next year of the Cupful. That's the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, kkupfl.com. If you have input or feedback or suggestions for rule changes to make next season's iteration even better than this one's, we're going to be having all those open chats on our Discord server over the off season. We'll be, of course, announcing when the Cupful opens first on our Discord server, so you can get in on the ground floor there. And also our monthly patron casts. And Elon, like, this is for everybody, but if you want to support the amazing work that Elon and Ben are going to do this offseason with our 32 beat series, where we will once again try and speak to as many beat writers around the league as possible, with the goal being one from every single NHL team to go deep and figure out what to expect from each player next year and reflect on the season that was. You can just throw your support and be like, hey, I am into this content and I appreciate it. So anyway, that was longer than I planned to go. But if any of that sounds worthwhile to you, for just $1 a month, over the off season, patreon.com/keepingkarlsson, or if it's easier, keepingkarlsson.com/patron.
Okay, yeah, this is already after an ad break. So we're just piling it all in here, but then we're going to be all fresh, new content for the rest of the episode. But yeah, also that's a message to existing patrons, right? Like, if you want to, we want you to hang out with us over the summer. We don't want you to leave. So we're just saying, like, decrease it to whatever you can, and then we'll have some fun in our Discord. Okay, so Brian, you were talking about how it would have been fun if Harry Sateri went to the Leafs, but instead he got signed by Arizona, and Arizona also traded Scott Wedgwood at the deadline. And so we discussed on the show how Karl Vejmelka is probably going to get a ton of games, and you said basically, like, yeah, he's gonna get a lot of games, but he's still kind of gonna be a risky start, and that has definitely come true. He's had a wild stretch. He's played 8 games in a row now. It looks like he's playing today against Chicago, so we'll see how this game turns out. So far so good, but yeah, if you look back, he had an amazing game against San Jose where he stopped 41 of 39 to 41. Then he got destroyed by Anaheim, of all teams, in the next game. The game before that, it was, yeah, you're just looking, like, every game, it's actually like, you see like 950 save percentage, 857, 950, 879. It just bounces up and down. So that's what you get with Vejmelka. I'd imagine it'll be the same next week. Maybe Harry Sateri does get in at some point and play a game for Arizona. Of course, the other big news out of Arizona is the sad news that Clayton Keller is out for the season. Lawson Krause was already also injured, likely, for the season. So all of a sudden, this team that, remember there was like a stretch a couple weeks ago where Arizona was just blowing everyone out, like every single game. It was so weird. You're like afraid to start a goalie against the Coyotes because they were scoring like 8 goals a game. I feel, Brian, is this a hot take to say I don't think that's going to happen anymore? It seems like now, minus Keller, minus Krause, I don't think Arizona is a scary team. They are up 2-1 over Chicago right now after the second period, but the goals are from Travis Boyd and M. Karlsson. So Michael Karlsson. So yeah, it's not exactly the types of players that you were probably rostering. Probably the one player that you've been rostering and loving is Nick Schmaltz, because he's been so insane. But now, without Clayton Keller, I talked about this with Ben, right? I think that Nick Schmaltz has like a huge dip. I think he might even potentially become like free agent fodder at this point. For
sure. Like, I actually didn't think, I can't remember if it was you or Ben that was still thinking like Schmaltz is pretty good in his own right. He might be okay. I got a heavy disagree with that. I'm really worried about his value the rest of the way. This guy who up until 2 games ago had 47 points in 48 games. Now it's 47 points in 50 games. Only 1 shot in each of his last 2 contests, and one of those he picked up a pair of points. But honestly, I mean, we've never looked to Schmaltz for shots, but he's generally been doing better than that this season. And I have some grave concerns about what Nick Schmaltz is going to be able to accomplish with Elon, your favorite, Travis Boyd and Matthias Michelli as his line mates instead of Krause and Keller. We talked about how Keller's outbursts were seemingly legitimate and that Schmaltz was able to capitalize off them and they were working together, which is great. But I really think you take Keller out of that lineup and there's nobody else to stir the drink. So I would be very concerned about Nick Schmaltz, and you might have a really quick snoozer, like a very sudden snoozer on your roster if you're not deeply evaluating whether he still belongs there for the remaining weeks of your fantasy season.
Yeah, and like Shams is asking in the chat about how about Gostisbehere. The thing with Gostisbehere is like even when Arizona was like how they normally are at the start of the year and barely scoring, he was still doing pretty well. Like it's not as if they get 0 goals per game, and he seems to be like someone who's involved when they do score. So I feel like Gostisbehere is like obviously a little less exciting than he was when Arizona was scoring like 8 goals a game, but I think he's still worth rostering. He has an assist today on a Travis Boyd goal. I think he's like a solid bet. Like, I mean, anyone who's doubted him at any point this year, I'm sure at points this year at the start, Brian, you and I were doubting him. And then he's just continued to produce at a pretty solid pace. So I think I'd continue to expect him to be like a solid like point every couple games at least, maybe a little bit more. Are you on the same page as me here? I mean, like, it looks like Jacob Chikrin might be out for the season now, is the latest news. So the Gostisbehere's got all. I mean, it didn't even matter though. He was already going to be the top power play guy. He's like going to play a ton of minutes, and so probably he's going to get in on any goals that they score.
Right, which there might not be a lot of. Like, let's look at this lineup again. Well, I'm not going to because you might fall asleep, but there's not a whole lot to love here in Arizona. But I'm with you, Elon, that you could hope to expect a point every other game or so from Gostisbehere, because I think he is sort of one of the remaining players in the lineup who can help drive offense. And he has at least a couple shots on goal in his last 4 games. So there's a starting point for some relevance too. And that's why I would be like, I don't know that I'd be more into Gostisbehere than Schmaltz. I think it's still pretty close. But if the question is how much worse will Gostisbehere be, how much value does he lose? I don't think he loses as much value as Schmaltz because it wasn't as high in the first place.
All right, so Shane is saying in the chat that this time of year I don't even look at players who don't play 4 games. So, all right, I hear you what you're saying, Shane. Let's go to a team that plays 4 games next week in the Tampa Bay Lightning. They go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. That's right, it's a streamagami. I don't know. I don't have the music, but I tried my best there. That's a shout out to Stream for anyone.
Oh, okay.
That people don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. So on the Tampa Bay Lightning, we've talked about how it's like a strange team to stream from because even though they're the Cup champs and they score a lot of goals, sometimes, I guess last time we talked about them, they were scoring a little bit less. It seems like you either have your guys that are rostered in all leagues and then everyone else like isn't that exciting. Though recently, Anthony Cirelli has started to step away from the pack and look like he is worth rostering, especially with these 4 games next week. He was available in tier 1 of the Cup for a while for me while I've been eyeing this week coming up since I had the buy and I knew I was going to have it for a while. And I kept on just letting him slip by because he wasn't doing anything. And now I'm really regretting it because he's on a nice hot streak. He's playing on a line with Killorn and Palat, which is one of the reasons I wasn't interested, right? Like they've been loading up their top line with the 3 big guns in Stamkos, Kucherov, and Point. But Cirelli somehow now has 6 points in his last 5 games anyway, including 5 shots in that game yesterday against Montreal. So I think at this point, with this schedule and this hot streak, unless you want to say that this hot streak is totally unsustainable, like obviously he could easily go cold, but I would take, like if he was available to me right now, I'd probably take any of Palat, Cirelli, or Killorn at this point with just because of the schedule.
Sure. Yeah, you get a lot of games. I'm here to tell you though that you don't need to tilt too hard about missing out on Cirelli. He's still a good player, right? And there's a lot to like about him, but he's on a 50-point pace for the season, and I still think that's about what to expect. Like he doesn't excite me any more than Palat or Killorn do. I don't think this is a sudden breakout, and the reason I don't think that is because over this stretch where he has 6 points in his last 5 games, including 2 multi-point outings, Cirelli has 3 points from the second power play unit. So that's just not something that's going to keep coming the way it's been coming when you're producing that much from power play number 2. And other than that, he has 3 points in 6 games at other strengths, which I think is actually probably about what we can expect from Cirelli, with maybe 1 power play point every so often, but not 3. So it's great if you did stream him in and you were able to benefit from that this past week, but I'm not about to expect him to repeat the feat, although he can. I wouldn't say it's statistically likely. I wouldn't say it's statistically likely that he will.
Okay, I think I agree with you. Like I think he's probably good for 2 points in 4 games, right? So depending on your other streaming options, if you're looking at teams that play only 2 times or like 3 times, but including busy days where you won't be able to play them, you probably won't be able to get a solid bet for 2 points. And by the way, I'm saying 2 points in 4 games with the possibility for 3. Like we've seen that he has that capability.
All right, Dylan, let me throw this at you. Anthony Cirelli or Nick Schmaltz?
Well,
The schedule will dictate that, right?
Yeah, like
okay,
Cirelli
so not a
plays.
great question. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a great question because I think no, Brian. Don't sell yourself short. I know that generally I'm the host asking the question, so like you're second guessing yourself right away after you ask this question. Let me tell you, Brian, that is a fantastic question, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that a lot of people have Nick Schmaltz on their rosters and are seeing Anthony Cirelli in free agency and are trying to decide if they make that swap. And they're probably thinking, oh, but Schmaltz has been so amazing for me. Wouldn't that be like so crazy? So it's like I'm here to say that yeah, Arizona plays Monday, Thursday, Saturday next week, and Cirelli plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So maybe if you want to give Schmaltz like one last chance to really wow you, they both play Monday, right? So, but the thing is, I think Cirelli might get taken, so you might have to just jump on him. But yeah, I'd make that swap, and I would take Cirelli. But I also think it was a good question. So tweet at us if you're in a situation where you were wondering that same thing, and say kudos Brian hashtag.
Okay. All right.
Do people still do hashtags? That feels like an old thing now. I feel like I'm being chuggy by saying to use a hashtag right now.
I don't know what that word means, so I'm the wrong person to ask if something is old.
Okay, let's go to Buffalo now. So Shane, again, he only wants. Brian, remember that song by Immaculate Machine? It's like, don't wake me up for anything less than 10 grand a day. That's why I feel like Shane is like, don't even wake me up unless we're talking about a team that plays 4 times next week. So someone should write that parody song. Buffalo Sabres play Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday against against Carolina twice, and then Florida and Tampa. So these aren't like amazing games in terms of probability of high number of goals scored, but still 4 games is 4 games. And the Sabres have been scoring some goals lately. Like we talked about how they beat Nashville on Friday. They scored 4 goals there. And then today they lost to the Panthers, but they lost 5-3. So that's another 3 goals. We talked about Alex Tuch on the last show, I believe, because he was on a cold streak. And we were saying that we thought that you should still grab him because he's on the top line, top power play, seems talented. And it looks like he was made us look decent, right? He had 2 assists against Nashville. He had assists against Florida. So there you go. We nailed that one. I think
if we wanted to,
yeah. Or let me just say one quick thing. We nailed that one, and obviously we'll say that if somehow Tuch is still out there, he would be my number 1 Sabre. Like I like Thompson and Skinner, but I'm imagining that they're like not available. Of the guys that might be available to you, Tuch still stands out to me as a clear streamer. And then maybe we can mention a couple others that if Tuch isn't available to you, we can go to who the next one is.
It's still surprising to me that Tuch is available in so many leagues. Like he shouldn't be available more than Jeff Skinner or Tayden Thompson. They should all be rostered fairly similarly. So with that said, yeah, definitely get Tuch. You want Skinner, you want Thompson. If we're overreacting to box scores, Elon, well, if you were overreacting, on Saturday night you saw Peyton Krebs, or on Friday night you saw Peyton Krebs and Dylan Cousins get 2 points each, and then follow that up with nothing today. So that would have definitely been an overreaction, but they are players to look out for as Buffalo plays out the rest of the season and probably wants to give them a couple more looks and a little more ice time to see what happens. Curiously, speaking of ice time, by the way, Tayden Thompson in his last couple games has just seen 15 and a half, 16 minutes, which is less than we're used to him seeing. And so I wonder if maybe the minutes are being shared around a little more evenly over this last chunk of the season. Alex Tuch was also down to 14 and a half minutes on Friday, but then played a more normal, almost 18 minutes tonight on Sunday. But back to Peyton Krebs and Dylan Cousins, both guys worth a shot. If you're in a deep enough league where you want to try somebody for a night, they could get 2 points any given night. They could also go out for a cardio shift and do absolutely nothing for you. Tayden Thompson, 2 goals on Friday, another goal today. He's up to, I think, 12 points now. I'm trying to factor in today's points in his last 10, and pretty impressive stuff. And the shots keep coming too. He has 3 or more shots in 9 of his last 11 games, which is great. He's going to need to keep shooting because he has been scoring on probably a few too many of the shots he's taken. But at the same time, I am not counting this guy out from just continuing to produce the way he's producing. He's now on a 67-point pace. And this is a guy who started the year sort of quietly. Like his first 10, 15 games, he hadn't quite broken out yet, was still like playing similar minutes to what he's playing now. But we weren't looking at him with the same reverence we're looking at him now. He's going to be a fun one to sort of project going into next year. For now, I would say just ride it. for as long as he can. He's shooting 14% in deployment that he's never seen before, averaging 3.5 shots per game this season. Again, almost a 70-point pace. So it's just a little Tage Thompson appreciation moment.
Yeah, and you can say the same thing about Jeff Skinner, right? He's also someone that no one expected to do anything this year, and he's been great, and he'll also be someone that'll be fun to project next year. I guess if I'm going to throw out someone, I think when you're talking about your like Dylan Cousins and your, who was it, Peyton Krebs, I think probably the lower end player, like outside of that top line that I'd be looking at is maybe Casey Middlestat, just because he's playing on the top power play. He's also been playing on a line with Olofsson and Rasmus Asplund. I don't know how much that's worth. Also, there's like Okposo, who's just been like solid and steady, but I think Middlestat's a little bit more interesting. 2 assists today. You could probably flip a coin for me between, like, probably a bunch of them actually. Flip a coin between Middlestat, Okposo, and maybe even Victor Olofsson as like that next Sabre to roster. But, you know, take a look in your free agency and see if any of them are out there, because again, 4 games, depending how deep your league is, maybe one of these guys is interesting to you. And then also, I guess you can also flip a coin in terms of the goalies. My guess is Tokarski and Anderson will play each of the games. But again, that's a tough schedule. So those would be some games I would be a little bit afraid of at this point. Brian, where should we go next? I see here that we haven't yet talked about the Nazem Kadri injury over in Colorado. So maybe we should just check and see what's been going on with the Avalanche with that big name out of the lineup. Also, Gabriel Landeskog was already out of the lineup, but they got someone in, Arturi Lehkonen. So there you go. And unfortunately, in the latest game, which was yesterday, it looks like Burakovsky got on the line instead of Nichushkin with McKinnon and Rantanen. So like last week when we were like drooling over Nichushkin and saying how he's someone that you have to roster because he's like top line, top power play. And I feel like I do this a lot. And it turns out to be a mistake, right? I was like, oh, and now with like Kadri out, is there even more of a chance that Nichushkin like holds this like top deploy? But I don't know. Like, but yeah, when a player gets injured, that's significant. Obviously, a bunch of things get shaken up. And all of a sudden now Nichushkin, a little less interesting. He still took 4 shots against Pittsburgh for what it's worth in this game where Colorado won 3-2. But since they won, maybe there's better chance that those lines will stick together. But yeah, Nichushkin was playing on a line with Arturi Lehkonen and JT Compher. But are we at a point now where basically it's like we've got a top line of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Burakovsky, and then kind of everyone else is a lot less interesting because then we're looking at Nichushkin, Lehkonen, and Compher as the second line?
I think so. Except I will at least point out that since joining the Avalanche, after I think there were like a lot of visa issues for Lehkonen, it took him a long time to actually get into the lineup, but he now has 10 shots in 3 games with the Avs, which is a nice, tidy piece of business, including 5 shots against Pittsburgh on Saturday night. That game was a slugfest, by the way. Looking at the box score there, what was it? The shot count was like 40-38 in favor of Colorado. Darcy Kemper and Tristan Jarry were both fantastic for their teams. And interestingly, for this Lehkonen line, which, you know, it probably doesn't deserve to be called the Lehkonen line, more like the Nichushkin line with Compher and Lehkonen, they played a lot. Both teams, Pittsburgh and Colorado, shortened their benches. It almost seemed like a playoff matchup where each team, they were just going toe to toe, all out, and their bottom lines and bottom pairings were not seeing a whole lot of action as Kemper and Jarry stood on their heads and kept it a close and super entertaining game. But yeah, shout out to Arturi Lehkonen. I might be interested in him. JT Compher is somebody who is generally pretty boring because he doesn't shoot at all, and that has held true. But I would still, like, at least as a streaming option, be interested in Lehkonen after Nichushkin. I wouldn't write him off completely, and I'd still prefer him more to someone like Alex Newhook, who did point in that game, but still, and in fact, in his last 2 games, but still was playing like barely above 10 minutes a night.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on all of that at this point. Yeah, I think it's like Nichushkin is interesting, Lehkonen maybe. Compher I always mix up with Alex Kerfoot. Like I guess they were both on Colorado at some point. But yeah, I always like say one and then mean the other. And so I feel similarly about them and their fantasy value for the most part, to be honest. A lot of people in our chat were freaking out about a Brock Besser injury today, but it looks like he's back. So Brock Besser is not injured, though he still is doing nothing. He's he's still not too exciting.
The way he's playing and what we said about him last week is not someone that I think you're freaking out about a whole lot. It's like if he's injured, maybe it's like, well, maybe he could use a few games off, take the classic keeping Karlsson vacation, and come back a more effective player because he's sure not doing much for you while he's in your lineup.
Yeah, but I guess now he's back. Vancouver plays Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday next week, and he was actually dropped in Tier 1 Sweden. So for any of you holding on to Brock Besser and feeling like, you know, he's probably too good to drop, like, other, obviously there's different situations. Maybe he was dropped by someone in a, a semi-final or quarterfinal matchup that just needed to do what they needed to do to win that week. But, he went through waivers, right? So both myself and Mark had buys, and neither of us put a claim on him because I figured, well, I'm not going to, drop Mikheyev, who plays Monday, Tuesday, to pick up Besser, who plays Wednesday. Maybe if like Besser's still out there on Wednesday, then I'll consider adding him. And if someone else takes him, then I'll grab some other streamer from Wednesday. I'll go with Paul Stasny, as we've all been joking around about, as someone that maybe could do something for you. So it's interesting. But yeah, if you have Besser, I think, and you really want a game next week, I think you can probably get away with dropping him, taking like a Toronto or Boston player who plays Monday, Tuesday, or Columbus, and then get Besser back on Wednesday if you can. And if not, whatever. Like, now that I say it, he's probably going to score a hat trick or whatever on Wednesday. Like, it's obviously possible. Like, he's in a good line, and he's obviously been known to score a lot of goals in the past. But as we've discussed, it's been a while since he's done anything especially noteworthy.
For sure. I already said my piece on Besser, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to add a whole lot of context here, except I think it might be best for anybody who has him and is afraid to drop him. Yeah, for him to go on IR. By the way, last week we talked about JT Miller's line being with Tanner Pearson and Connor Garland and how both guys might be interesting. Tanner Pearson, 8 shots in his last 2 games going into tonight's action against Vegas, but that's it. No points. And then Connor Garland had a 5-shot night in the first of the home and home with St. Louis, and then followed that up with no shots but 1 assist. So, I mean, about what you'd expect from Connor Garland and Tanner Pearson. No automatic value to be found here, unfortunately, though, just because they're playing with JT Miller.
Okay, and actually, we were just talking about all these players that I was saying that maybe you drop like a Besser and grab someone playing Monday, Tuesday. There's 3 teams that do that. Like I said, Toronto, then Boston, and Columbus. We've already discussed Toronto to death, but actually Boston and Columbus played each other on Saturday. So maybe let's take a look at who's doing well on either of those teams and see if who is that streamer over there. The Bruins won 5-2, and Eric Haula is hot again. He scored 2 goals. He's playing on that line with Pasternak. I think it's pretty clear to me. I know that like Jake DeBrusk also had a good game. He's playing on the Marchand line. So I guess it's an interesting conversation. Charlie Coyle actually scored a goal, and I believe he's the one who was getting power play time at some point. It looks like that's over now. Oh, that was just when Bergeron was injured. So yeah, forget him, though. Obviously, he's still able to do something. But I think for me, I'm looking at Haula, then DeBrusk, and then Coyle, and then like I guess Craig Smith if you're going super deep. But you're with me on that?
Absolutely. Well, Craig Smith is now like a super deep cut. He was more in the conversation at various points in this season, but in the last few games he's playing like 14 minutes a night, so I wouldn't be so invested in him at all, even though he has had one of the better runs lately of anyone in Boston. He seems to be the odd one out at the moment with no deployment to really be very excited about. And then, like you said, I would go with Eric Haula first. Now that what he's doing is sustainable, he's got 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points in his last 6 games. Those 4 goals have come on 12 shots, so he's scoring on 1 of every 3 shots he takes, which isn't going to sustain. But what is going to sustain for Eric Haula is that he's playing with David Pastrnak and Taylor Hall. And last week we were talking about how Taylor Hall is suddenly in the conversation as a top-end fantasy option again. Now that he has someone to play with in David Pastrnak, and Eric Haula gets to be there too. So I think he's someone who can go hot and can go cold, but I'd prefer him to Jake DeBrusk, who himself is on this 4-game point streak during which he has 6 points, including 4 goals on 11 shots. So also scoring on almost 1 of every, or more than 1 in every 3 shots he takes. But Jake DeBrusk, we've seen him playing 20 games with Bergeron and Marchand, and he's been super unproductive for a lot of it. So I'm not going to fool myself over what I'm seeing over the last 4 games in this point streak DeBrusk is on. DeBrusk and Haula are probably cut from a fairly similar cloth, but I would take Haula, who seems to have done better with his opportunities over the last few years than DeBrusk has.
Yeah, I'm with you, but also obviously they might both be available, or maybe only one of them is available. I think they're both interesting now going into at least Monday, Tuesday, and then drop for Brock Besser or someone, playing on Wednesday. Like we said, Boston plays Columbus and Detroit, so not the hardest of competitors as opposed to those Toronto streamers where, again, they're playing Tampa Bay and Florida. Then, yeah, Columbus is the other team that plays Monday, Tuesday. We have a question in the chat here, actually, from Dan Barber asking if he should stream in Charlie Coyle or Gustav Nyquist. So let's see what Nyquist has been doing here. He's been playing on a line with with Bjorkstrand and Cole Sillinger most recently in that game where they lost to Boston. Nyquist also on, I guess this is the top power play, or I don't even know, Nyquist, Roslovic, Bemstrom. That can't be the top power play, but I guess they were mixing things around in that game for this, like, looks like one power play opportunity. But is Nyquist, I don't know, he's so boring to me. He's kind of like, even Jack Roslovic is playing on the top line, who's someone that I think should be interesting. Like, he's playing with Line and Voracek, but he's available in Tier 1 Sweden, and I'm still trying to decide on who I'm going to replace Nylander with. I don't know. I'm just not feeling Roslovic or any of these people.
Yeah, well, Nyquist is like, last week we talked about Brandon Saad and how he's like this 50-50 hit. And with St. Louis coming up with a 4-game week, you should probably check out Brandon Saad because he's probably going to get you 2 points. You don't know when, you don't know where. He ended up getting like 4 points this week, of course, because it's the week I decided not to stream him. And, there are these guys who you stream in over and over through the season to 0 results that eventually you just give up on. But then they happen to somehow land on your opponent's roster at the worst possible time to take revenge on you. And Saad is one of those guys for me who I gave up on. And Gustav Nyquist has also been that guy in past years for me. And also this year for me too. Nyquist has had a couple meaningful runs here, but they all seem pretty random. And I'm never really convinced that anytime he strings a few multi-point nights together over the course of a couple weeks, that they're going to keep coming this way. He does it, but not in a sustainable way. That makes him somebody that I'm really that excited to roster. He's at a 50-point pace this year, and that's about what I expect. But I will put him, slightly ahead of the Brandon Saad type, where it's like a 50-50 chance he'll score on any given night. Gustav Nyquist probably has a slightly better chance of putting up a point or a multi-point night than Brandon Saad, but not by much. So who's the choice between Nyquist and Coyle? I'd go Coyle. I think he's more like, Nyquist and Coyle? I'd go Nyquist. I think he's a little more likely to help you out than Charlie Coyle, but both of them are extremely boring.
Yeah, I guess it's like, for me, I'm going to say Coyle, but again, it's close. And a lot of times these decisions come down to like a coin flip. It's really hard to predict just these couple games. I guess Boston is playing Columbus and Detroit, and Columbus is playing Boston and Philly. And so I'd prefer, to avoid that game against the Bruins, or maybe Linus Ullmark has a good game. Not like he's been so amazing. But by the way, Boston has announced, very convenient for fantasy managers when teams do it, they've announced Ullmark Monday and Swayman Tuesday. So if Ullmark's out there for you and you want to stream someone, and you could get Ullmark for that Monday game against Columbus, and then you could safely drop him, because then Boston won't play again until Friday against Tampa. And like, who knows who will play that game? And also, do you really even want that, hold the goalie just for a game against Tampa in like 4 days? But that would be the strategy there. Brian, interesting development in Ottawa that Hunter Mooney has mentioned in our chat here, that the Ottawa Senators, who defeated the Detroit Red Wings today 5-2, and they did it with a new line combination. So Drake Batherson off the top line with Norris and Tkachuk, and it looks like instead newly acquired Matthew Joseph was playing on that line, and Matthew Joseph had 3 assists. What? Okay. Is it, to quote Ben, is it Matthew Joseph season now? Like, I guess Ottawa's schedule, I apologize to Shane, who's probably falling asleep right now, because we're talking about a team that does, wait a minute, Ottawa does play 4 times next week. They play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So top line, Matthew Joseph, who just had 3 assists. Is he shooting up our radar? And I guess at the same time, are we concerned about Drake? Like, you're not going to drop Drake Batherson, right? But obviously you're a little sad that he's off the top line. But they won today. It was against Detroit, who stinks now. But what are you reading into this change and the success that it bred?
Yeah, real battle of the Titans there in that Ottawa-Detroit game. Elon, I think you failed to mention that the game prior, on Friday, the first half of this home and home, Matthew Joseph had a hat trick. 3 goals on 7 shots.
I'm behind.
I don't even think you mentioned it. And he had 1 assist in 14 and a half minutes. And this is crazy because Matthew Joseph had just 4 shots in 4 games with Ottawa before this. And then he puts up the hat trick, gets promoted to the Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris line, picks up 3 assists. Josh Norris has the hat trick this time around. Matthew Joseph only takes 2 shots. But why are you shooting when Josh Norris' shots are all going in? Joseph played over 20 minutes today, which I would have to look at all his Tampa game logs. That might be a career high. In his career, he has averaged 12 minutes a night. In Ottawa, he's averaging 14 to 16 minutes, which is a couple more minutes than he was seeing in Tampa. But I was ready to talk about his hat trick and what it means going forward. I was going to say line 3, no power play, but that's changed. He's now has 6 points or 7 points in his last 2 games, 3 goals and 4 assists, and playing on the top line. I'm interested, Elon, so long as he plays with Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris on this top line. If he does go back to the third line, forget it. I'm not interested. And Drake Batherson, how can you not like a guy who's been over a point per game for the whole season? And I think he's earned a bunch of it. He still gets to play with Stützle and Formenton if he does hold on the second line, which isn't awful, right? It is a place that I think meaningful production can still come from. So don't panic too much if you have Drake Batherson.
Okay, I think I agree with you, but Brian, I have a tough decision to make now. If you don't mind me just asking you an advice question, like I told you, Nylander is ill. I have a free ad for my matchup next week. I was looking at one of these Monday, Tuesday guys, just thinking like I might as well get the volume, and I'm looking at your like Kerfoots or I don't even know, like all boring options like Roslovic. Should I just grab Matthew Joseph, who I'll only get Tuesday from Monday, Tuesday, but maybe he becomes a hold for the week? I don't know. Everyone in the chat here is saying they're high on Hunter's saying he's high on Joseph. Shane is saying he's into Matthew Joseph. Do I need to jump on him because now someone in tier 1's listening and is about to take him if I don't grab him right now?
I don't think I'd rush that hard. You have the option. I think I'd prefer. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, let's compare Kerfoot, let's say. Kerfoot Monday, Tuesday, or Joseph. But I will, to add some complication, like I have Mikheyev on my team. I have Allmark on my team. So I have like other drops to make. Like I could just hold someone that I add for 4 games, right?
And would you get extra games if you don't make any of these drops?
Well, I was thinking originally that I would add a Monday, Tuesday person and then drop that person for like a Brock Besser or someone in free agency, that starts playing on Wednesday. But, if you say Matthew Joseph is someone that is like good and then potentially like someone to hold for the week, then I could drop other people and just hold Matthew Joseph and get his 4 games, which is still pretty good. I'll take 4 games.
Yeah. The thing is that I still think Matthew Joseph is probably a middle 6 forward. I don't think he has this huge offensive upside. I think he's like a solid player who can play a good role in the middle 6, but I don't think he's a legit top liner, which, after these performances though, how do you assume he's going to be knocked off the top line? I'm not sure. But I also don't know how he ended up on the top line, I guess from his hat trick that he had. And they're like, okay, we have a new first line player. And of course the organization, wants to show off their newly acquired piece. Nick Paul, traded for Matthew Joseph, was a fan favorite. So let's make a quick fan favorite out of this guy too. There's motive. These are all the things you need to consider in the big picture. Elon, I truly, the answer to this question is so entirely deployment dependent. Matthew Joseph could be nowhere next game, and Alex Kerfoot is likely to still be on the second line. So, I think it's the boring choice. I would go Alex Kerfoot, but if you want to take that big, like Matthew Joseph is the bigger swing. So this, I think, comes down to how you want to strategically play your week.
I see. It's like a ceiling versus floor thing. And then, so for people listening,
except Kerfoot's floor is incredibly low as well. Like his floor is no higher than Joseph's.
Yeah, I guess Kerfoot likely gets a point or 2 this week just because he plays in the top 6 in Toronto and they score a lot of goals. I don't know, but you're right. That's not that exciting. So, okay. And it's probably an assist. By the way, Shams is pointing out that, I started the show with a mistake saying that the Rangers got shut out by Philly, but I didn't realize the game was still going. And actually the game is now almost done in the third, but like the Rangers have scored 3 goals in the third period. And so all of my concerns about them not scoring because Ryan Strome is injured, I guess, I don't know, turned out fine for this period. Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kopp all with goals, and even Vetrano with an assist. So again, these Rangers middle sixers producing for you. And thanks Mika Zibanejad for scoring a goal for me once I've already lost my matchup to Shams, and it's not going to help. So could have used a few of those earlier in the week as well. But what are you going to do? Brian, okay, what is it, 9:30? I think we could wrap this thing up pretty soon, but I'd love to still be walking through these box scores with you. Maybe we can take a look at Minnesota versus Washington, because Minnesota is another one of those teams. Oh, I hope this is okay with Shane. So Minnesota only plays 3 times next week, but then they play 4 times in the final week. And Matt Boldy is injured, so there have been some new lines. Apparently Boldy is going to be evaluated for Tuesday, but the latest I saw is that he won't be ready. I think the beat writer said leaning towards him probably not being ready for Tuesday. So in that case, we take a look, and it's been Tyson Yost playing with Kevin Fiala and Frederick Gaudreau, which already Matt Boldy was cold. So I guess now we're not going to get so excited about Tyson Yost, but I guess it's just worth mentioning this deployment he's getting. I think the main thing on Minnesota I should probably bring up is that I was very hard on Joel Eriksson Ek. There was a show I did, I think, with Short Shifts with Ben like a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how Joel Eriksson Ek is now like on the third line, and like he was off the top power play. It was just like, forget about this. I think I even said like, forget about him. Let's move on. I don't even want to talk about him. And obviously, that was a good anti-jinx, because he scored 2 goals and 1 assist today versus Washington so far. He also had a nice point streak earlier in this week and last week. So I think Joel Eriksson Ek is worth noting, and maybe someone that if he was dropped because people listened to me just waving him off without maybe putting in enough thought, it's could be someone good to grab, especially for 4 games in the finals week.
For sure. I actually looked at him going into like in my show prep too. Because he did factor in the last game before this. Okay. Actually, let me just start that over. Okay, just a sec. Yeah, to be completely transparent, I also looked at Eriksson Ek as an option coming into like preparing the show, and I looked and I was like, it doesn't really excite me. But I'll be honest, I am gonna overreact to this box score where he has 3-point night, 3 shots. And the game's not even over yet, but he's playing healthy minutes. As you mentioned, Elon, top power play. His even strength line is like useless. And I guess that would be the one reason to not get too excited about this. And maybe useless is harsh, but it's a clear third line for Eriksson Ek, Foligno, and Jordan Greenway, who as a line have scored 3 times on 6 shots tonight, which is why, and of course, Joel Eriksson have scored 2 of those times on 3 shots. So I think he's not a bad bet amongst all the other sort of streamers we've talked about on the show so far tonight as a forward option to try. Like, if you're asking me, what was it, Nyquist, Coyle, or Ek? I think I would take a flyer on Ek and see if he can. Yeah.
To me, like Ek is like higher. Like I take Ek also over Matthew Joseph. Like I just think he's like a higher end guy.
I might have him around Joseph, especially if Joseph sticks on the top line. Like, he's not someone I'm rearranging my roster to fit in because this game has gone really well. That's what I would do if I were truly overreacting to the box scores. But he is like he should be. When I'm planning for the week ahead, I usually look at the schedule, look at all the teams playing the most or who I'm going to get the most games from. And I go through each roster, who the top free agents are, and like compile them into my watch list. And Ek would be at the top of that list, essentially, if I had a team to manage next week in the couple, which I don't. Sadly, it's okay. Don't cry for me. I'm winning another league. Okay, I'm happy. I'm okay with my performance overall.
You've got a good life.
Yeah, everything's okay. Thanks for worrying about me, though. I appreciate it.
I think let's also go to Edmonton before we sign off, because there was news that Mikko Koskinen is like injured. He has an illness or whatever, so he was out for today. I feel really bad. There was one of our patrons, Jason, was asking on Discord, like, should I make the preempt? I only have 1 move left for the week, and a goalie start would be really useful for me. Should I just make the preemptive move and add Koskinen? Because like I know the goalie game, it hasn't been announced, but if I don't take him, someone else might take him. And then a bunch of people were saying, I think Brian, you even advised caution. You were like, I like to wait for a goalie start confirmation before I grab a goalie. And then I had to like open up my big mouth. I just chimed in and said, just for what it's worth, I didn't say like go grab him. I just said for what it's worth, I think it's very likely Koskinen will play because he had 2 good games. Then Mike Smith came in and stunk. Why wouldn't Dave Tippett, or not Dave Tippett, whatever, like the new coach, what's his name again?
Scott Woodfair. Is that it? It's not Jim Woodcroft. No, Jay Woodcroft.
Okay, I'm gonna edit it so you just said Jay Woodcroft right away, not Scott Woodfair. I said Woodcroft. Like I just assumed like for sure he would play Koskinen. Why would he not? But I guess one reason why he would not is because Koskinen is sick. So I think like my advice wasn't wrong. Like I think they were probably going to, almost for sure they were going to play Koskinen, I would think.
Spoken like someone who hasn't had this sort of heartbreak. Like, has this happened to you this season, Elon? Because this happened to me where I've added the guy who like 99.9% sure is going to start. And I think it's happened to me more than once this year. And I ended up losing the move, losing the game. And I ranked, like the question was that we were being asked on our Discord was, should I add a skater or a goalie for my purposes for the game tomorrow? And like, we all agreed goalie. And then the follow-up was, what if the goalie's not confirmed yet? And so I ranked it confirmed goalie, skater, unconfirmed goalie. And I feel very justified now. Like I'm
I
doing
just
this,
think like
but I feel terrible because he took the plunge, and I hope he still wins regardless, or that it wouldn't have mattered, right?
yeah, I'm just gonna say like injuries are hard. Like he could have added a skater, and that skater could have ended up having an illness also, right? So I would feel a lot worse about the advice if like just Mike Smith got the start over Koskinen, like illness aside. You know, like, I can't predict who's going to get sick. But anyway, I guess the advice could have been to just wait all the way until like the moment before the game starts, and then make your ad to make sure that the player's not going to get scratched at the last minute. Anyway, all this to say that Stuart Skinner has been called up on an emergency basis, and for however long Koskinen is out, I guess Mike Smith is the starter. He stunk in Oilers' last game, but right now they're halfway through the second, and I'm totally going to jinx him because I don't care. He's shutting out Anaheim right now. Edmonton's up 4-0. Obviously, a lot could still happen, but Mike Smith potentially becomes somewhat interesting. I don't really trust Mike Smith at this point, but if you want a goalie that might play, as long as Koskinen is out, like Edmonton plays 3 times next week against San Jose, LA, and then Colorado. So at least those first couple of games aren't like especially scary. So if Mike Smith gets the call on Tuesday, I guess you can give him a try depending on who else is out there.
Just so sad, like still. And I can say this, if I said this at the start of the season, this was one of our most controversial topics from the top of the season, was my continued distrust of Mike Smith after the recent body of work. But now I can say it again. It's sad. It's sad to me that a team with a generational superstar, Connor McDavid, definitely going to go down as like one of the best players ever, is playing, trying to go on a playoff run with Mike freaking Smith in that, and Mikko Koskinen. Like what is Stuart Skinner doing to not deserve a shot at this point? I don't know. Maybe it was a travel issue today, but to me, it's just ludicrous. Like it's sad. It's just kind of a waste. But looking at the box score from today, I am seeing a couple encouraging signs from players who had been quiet lately. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with a goal and an assist tonight after being completely left out of a few nights of Edmonton scoring, where there were goals being scored, but not with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the ice. So it wasn't even that there were goals scored while RNH was playing and he wasn't getting in on them. There just weren't goals. And I'm not sure his lines deserved a whole lot anyway. So it's nice to see him tally again after having his managers wonder, is this guy really worth holding? And Jesse Puljujarvi also with the goal tonight. He's been really quiet since coming back from injury, even though he's been playing with Evander Kane and Connor McDavid, where Puljujarvi has generally been reliable with. He hadn't been getting in on the action very often until now. So Puljujarvi with a goal. Hopefully that's the first of several points to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. He'll probably just run hot and cold, I'd imagine, but McDavid's having himself a game. This is why you drafted McDavid first overall in your leagues, because, like, again, in my matchup against Shams, where he destroyed me this week, it probably helped him that he had 4 games from Connor McDavid, and McDavid has not been quiet. Let's just say that. He's been producing better than Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was before today, that's for sure. Okay, I guess Matt in the chat here is asking about Kuznetsov. Yeah, there were some line changes in Washington. Like, Washington, by the way, didn't play like all week, right? They played Monday. They didn't play again until Sunday. We had the whole controversy, some exciting discussion in our Discord because someone dropped Ovechkin in the couple because they were in the quarterfinals. They figured that they could stream that spot and get like 5 games or whatever instead of just Ovechkin's 1 game. And then I guess a lot of people were thinking like, well, let's see what Ovechkin does today to decide like how bad of a move that was. And Washington only scored 1 goal today, and Ovechkin had an assist. So it ended up being a smart move, unless like you would have won your week anyway, in which case next week now you're minus Ovechkin and you don't get to move forward. So we'll have to check it and see if that manager actually did end up winning their week because of this move or whatever, however that worked out. But regardless, by the way, the decision we decided was to let the plan was never to like not let the player drop, like not let the person drop Ovi. Like you got to manage your team how you want to manage it. We were just deciding whether or not to let Ovi go into waivers or whether to just like take him off the board and not let anyone get him. In the end, we decided, people have been saving their fab all year. I never expected people to be saving their fab to potentially get an Ovechkin drop, but I guess at this point it would have been kind of weird to say like, no, he's too good. But we might make a change for next year, so we'll discuss that. We'll probably do an episode at some point, right, Brian, where we'll discuss some couple rule changes. Maybe we could even do a bracket again of rule change suggestions. We'll come up with something fun to do.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of the cupful, by the way, kkupfl.com,
You
shout
keep
out.
recommending the Cupful website, even though it's like out of date. I keep telling you, like, why do we keep shouting out a website that's out of
It's
date?
just a place you can go to learn a little bit more about the cupful.
Okay,
It's
fair
not,
enough.
yeah, that's
But
it.
don't sign up. If you go to thecupful.com and you see like sign up now, you can't sign up now.
Elon's
Okay, like
annoyed because we've had 2 signups in the last week. He's like, "What are we doing? Why are people so?" I've turned off the form. You can't accidentally sign up anymore. So I think that problem has been solved. But
well, they
Elon,
still
let's
go to
talk.
the site. They still go to the
Oh,
site and see the
okay.
link.
Yeah. Well, okay. They see a lot about the cupful. It's a great website. We'll
True,
update
true.
it over the off season. What's happening in the cupful right now, though, Elon? You've referred to your situation often as having a bye in the first round of the cupful. There are 6 teams in contention to become the world's best fantasy hockey manager, the cupful ultimate champion. We're gonna have that field cut to 4 after tonight. And it looks like Harrison is going to pull off the 6-3 upset over Jordan Sasquatch Snipers, who had outright the 3rd best record in the division this year, but couldn't unfortunately get past Harrison. Unfortunately for Jordan, couldn't get past Harrison in the first round. And Short Shifts host Lewis looks like he's about to fall in another, kind of an upset. He was the higher seeded team, but had an identical record to Brandon of BrandonWeeb.com, who has done so many of our logos and artwork for the show. Brandon looks like he's going to advance over Lewis. So, Elon, that means it looks like you are going toe to toe with Brandon, and it'll be Marcus, former Stat Attack host, former Stat Attack host Marcus and his Phoenix Park Deer taking on Harrison. And the winners of each of those matchups will go head to head for the title of Cupful Ultimate Champion. It's so exciting. If you want to follow these matchups and see what these rosters look like, guess where you can go? kkupfl.com. There is a standings button along the top. If you click the beautiful tier 1 logo we have for Sweden, made by one of our patrons, Edward, who's done some amazing work, you can go and see the whole league live, see the ads being dropped. You can go and see the whole league live, see the ads being made, the drops being made, the scores, what Elon's doing. Go check it out. kkupfl.com.
Yeah, you can go see if I added Kerfoot or Matthew Joseph with my last ad of the week. It's going to be exciting. I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping for Jordan to win against Harrison, just because then I would have played Jordan. And I made a trade with him at the trade deadline where I sent him Marchessault, who only plays twice next week, and I got back Braden Point. I also sent him Kuznetsov. So maybe it was a bit of a badly weighted trade, but I did it for the schedule, and I was curious to see how it would play out if we actually played each other. But maybe it's good that I avoided Marchessault, because even in 2 games lately, he's been completely on fire. He got, I think, another point today. Yeah, he assisted on the overtime winner by Shea Theodore. Oh, and he scored a goal. Yeah, Marchessault's actually been really amazing. So maybe it's okay that I avoided Jordan. But sorry, Jordan. Bad luck for you. You're a really good player. But Jordan's one of the best players out there. But anyway, I want to talk about Washington, right? That's the reason why I ended up talking about Ovechkin, and then we went to the couple. The whole news going into today was that Kuznetsov was off the McDavid line, and so then the question is, like, does he lose a ton of value? That happened.
You said Kuznetsov was off the McDavid line.
Kuznetsov was off the Ovechkin line, and that was obviously something that happened earlier this year. I remember when Nicholas Backstrom came back from his injury, people were really worried about how that would affect Kuznetsov, and so here it is, for whatever it's worth. Though actually, Kuznetsov did get an assist today on a goal that Ovechkin also got an assist on, so I guess things got shaken up at some point in the game, but whatever. I'm not going to be too worried about Kuznetsov. He's had a really good year. Maybe he'll let you down a little bit, but not to the point where, he's droppable. He's playing with Oshie and Mantha. I think maybe an underrepresented story here is that Mantha's probably available in a lot of leagues, and maybe he gets an upgrade getting to play with Kuznetsov and TJ Oshie if he stays healthy. So maybe take a look. Again, Washington's actually one of these teams, like Vancouver, they don't play until Wednesday. So again, this is where you might want to strategize and get your Monday, Tuesday from Kerfoot again. I'll throw it out there. Roslovic, whoever you're going to go. Oh, Howla on Boston. And then you drop if you can't get Brock Besser, maybe you can get like a Mantha, or hey, if someone drops Kuznetsov, then go for it. So
for sure. Yeah. Kuznetsov, even if his schedule isn't the best, 12-game point streak just ended. And in that 12-game point streak, he had 4 more shots several times, including a couple 6-shot games, and played almost 26 minutes one night and had a few games above the 20-minute mark, which is rare for a forward. I guess he's been averaging just over 20 minutes a night this season, but that's huge compared to the 16 and a half minutes a night he was averaging last year. So even though Kuznetsov might not look like the ideal candidate because he's not playing with Ovechkin, man, I would not be down on Kuznetsov, especially because of his continued presence on the top power play. That game where he played 26 minutes, almost 8 minutes of power play time. Sadly, just one power play point. I guess that's the reason why you play almost 8 minutes, right? Because you can't score on the power play to end it. But he's a really fantastic option, and I wouldn't shy away from, like, I would rather have, one fewer game of Kuznetsov than, one more game of Kerfoot or Coyle or Nyquist or any of these other guys.
Yeah, I guess here's a trick, by the way, that you can use. If you happen to, this is a rare thing. This is kind of like what I was saying before about if you have a bye week, you can do certain like maneuvering when you have injuries. Listen to the last Patreon cast, know what I'm talking about. Another trick, check and see if you have the most fab. If you're in your fantasy playoffs and you're like the cupful where we're a fab league where we all have a waiver budget and any player dropped and everyone has the option to bid on that player. If you have the most fab of anyone still playing, and don't forget the bottom couple teams may be locked at this point, like certain teams may be locked, that means you basically get a free drop where you get the player back for free, right? Because you could just use all your fab to get that player. So theoretically, you could, like, if you have Kuznetsov and you have the most fab, you can drop him today, like on Monday. Like in the couple, there's a day extra, right? So you could drop him on Monday. He won't clear till Wednesday morning. Get 2 games. Get your Monday, Tuesday games, and then get your player back on Wednesday. You can do that with Ovechkin, right? If you have the most fab, then you're guaranteed to win. So if you happen to be in that situation, there's a little trick that you can use to get a free drop and guaranteed to get the player back, which I don't know. It's a trick that I've recommended to my brother, actually, in his division, because he's the type of player that never uses fab because that's just not the way he plays. He just likes to go grab people at the last minute, and he actually, I think, made it through round 1 of the Tier 3 Binghamton Finals. There's a chance my brother could end up in Tier 1 next year, but he's going to have to really pick up his game, I think, next week. We'll see how it goes.
I can't wait to find out who wins Tier 1 of the Cupful and whether your brother wins his Division 2. 2 Dabrowskis in the top tier? That'd be a lot.
The thing is, Joel was telling me that he was thinking of like not coming back to the couple next year, but I feel like if he like wins his division and earns into Tier 1, he kind of needs to, right? But we'll deal with that later. Brian, this has been so fun. I think it's been a big success. I'm not saying that we should do this every week, but for those listening, FYI, a little pat on the back for us. We didn't really prep this week like we normally do. I mean, I'd be curious to know actually if people noticed or not. Like after you listen to the edited show, probably people on the YouTube, like the people watching live, could tell because we had to take a couple quick stops, and also they saw me writing in the chat, being like, "Who do you guys want us to talk about next?" But as far as people listening to the edited version, Brian and I tried something a little different. I'd love to hear what you thought of the show because it was definitely nice to not have to like do a crazy prep. But I'm happy to do it for the listeners and of course for the patrons that support the show. So normally we'll go back to the standard fare, but it was a fun experiment, and Brian, I really enjoyed just shooting the S with you over this past hour and 50 minutes. I'm just realizing now that you probably have something else you want to do. I thought the show was about to be done, but now I'm remembering that you had another thing you wanted to put into this show. So I'll hand it over to you to finish things off.
Okay, well, Elon, at this time of year, we always take a moment to send out our best wishes and condolences and sympathies to any fantasy team who has lost and is eliminated. Now, we did get an interesting comment from Marcus on Twitter when I put the call out that nobody is replying to our invitation to share your knocked out playoff team's name, because if you've been listening all year, then you probably haven't lost. So thanks, Marcus. I appreciate that, and I hope it's true. We only have a few teams, Elon, but enough to for you to cue up our famous music.
Happy Father's Day.
Entitled as longtime hardcore Keeping Karlsson listeners will know, it's called Happy Father's Day.
I don't even know if this is like free use music. It's like music I found on YouTube one time a long time ago. But I can't imagine we're going to get sued by Happy Father's Day, right? So let's cue it up right now.
All
Brian,
right.
let's do it. Do you want me to play along? How about you just say the names? Okay, you have a good sad voice.
Okay. Well, it's fun when we go back and forth.
Okay, let's go back and forth. Where do I go?
It's in the Discord server.
All right, I'm on my way. Okay, let me go from like cue up the Happy Father's Day music. Where am I? Like tributes to the fallen. Okay, Father's Day music. Brian, I guess why don't you get us started? We'll go back and forth and pay homage to the people we've lost on our journey. And now here we are, sadly, having to say goodbye to their fantasy seasons.
Yeah, deepest sympathies to the manager of Baron Vladimir Larkinen, which is Lewis, who has been knocked out of the Cupful quarterfinals.
Slash Gordon is the next team to go, managed by Norm. Sad story. His projected total didn't eclipse his opponent's current total. That's when he knew that he had to accept his defeat.
Jupax, Julian Paquette, formerly of Clipping Karlsson, finished third in the regular season, but is out already. That's a shame. That hurts.
A bunch of guys in McKinnon was eliminated last week, which I guess makes sense. You probably need just more than just a bunch of guys along with McKinnon. You need to also draft some other players. So next year, try doing something differently.
That's what we should call the segment. Next year, try doing something differently. Scotch balls are gone. Sorry, Scotch balls. Unfortunately, Pacioretty, that hurts figuratively and literally. Binnington's over, right? Like after his like you can't start without totally blowing it. I feel like his career is like on the brink after his last start.
I mean, his career, he just signed like a long-term big money contract. So I feel like he'll probably get some more chances. But next week, hopefully, I have Ville Husso. And I also had Binnington at one point for my Cupful team. And I decided that because at one point I was thinking they'll probably each play 2 times. Now I'm just thinking I'm going to ride Husso and hope he gets the next 3 starts.
They're going to need to find like another Ottawa who like bid against themselves to trade and then sign Matt Murray.
Oh God.
Like that's where Binnington's going next. Whatever team has a similar look. So sorry to Scotch balls.
Mr. Peanut Butter's super team gonna lose despite having the second most points scored in the division. Sucks.
Elon, looks like this is how many teams do you have? Macaroni in a pot. Started the season 0-6. Is this your team? You're a co-manager on it, or is that just a commissioner thing?
It's just a commissioner thing.
This is Mason's team. This is like the unluckiest.
Maybe
team.
you could go back to the start. So
okay.
To say the thing about me.
Okay. All right. Next up, Macaroni in a Pot, which is Mason's team. We've mentioned Mason a bunch on the show. He always has good stuff to say. He had maybe the most unlucky Cupful season. I think there was one week where he had, out of the 448 teams in the Cupful, Mason had the second highest total. His opponent had the first. Or like something similar. It was a really rough luck year, and it's sad that Mason couldn't pull it off. He started 0-6, came back to 10-12, couldn't make the playoffs, even though he had the third most total points in his division. But Elon, you are a co-manager on his team, like for commissioning reasons, and Mason's silver lining is that maybe he brought down your fantasy ranking score, which will humble you.
I didn't even think about that.
To make the playoffs.
The things I do for the Cupful, I hurt my rankings.
Yeah.
Man, I do so well in fantasy and people won't even know. Oh well. Whatever.
That's good.
If I become the
up on them.
That's true. I should join some public leagues. Hopefully I don't get a badge that says I'm the Cupful Tier 1 Ultimate Champion. If I win, then no one will trade with me.
I don't know if you joined a public league, like to lose. I don't think you would go through with it. I feel like you wouldn't be able to.
Wait, why would I join a public league to lose?
Oh, you meant to well, I thought maybe you would join some public leagues to continually hurt your score.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I don't see why. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't like losing, though I just did lose to Shams in one league, like I said, but Shams lost in the Cupful. The House Hippos could only drag their flawed roster so far. Adios, Shams.
You sounded satisfied that, Shams beat you, but Shams has lost in another league. Makar won't start. Most points for in Tier 7 Cowan of the Cupful. Lost Werenski and Connor at a very key moment. I'm sorry, Makar won't start.
We didn't talk about Kyle Connor, by the way, though. No. He might be back next week. Hopefully he's back by Wednesday. I'm banking on it.
And then just one on Twitter. Hit me Berube one more time. We'll be out of the playoffs unless there was a miracle today. It's a good team name. I haven't heard that one before.
It's okay. Berube doesn't sound that much like baby, right?
No,
it's like a bit
doesn't.
of a stretch.
Berube. Bay.
Yeah, I see it. I get it. It's pretty good. Good job. Not good
if you-
enough because you lost.
All of this on a t-shirt. Soon we'll be collecting winners' names to celebrate, and keep an eye out if you want your team tributed one way or the other on our Twitter feed. Thanks for joining us this week. And just a reminder, we're doing a lot this offseason. The content's still going to come just because some of your fantasy seasons are over. Our season never ends. We're going to keep churning out the content, and you can be a part of our Patreon community for just $1 a month over the off season. Thanks to our new special. So go to keepingkarlsson.com/patron. We do this every summer. And the idea is you get a taste, you like what you see, and you decide, hey, these guys are worth supporting. But if you think we're worth at least $1 a month of your support, we would love to have you join us on board, keepingkarlsson.com/patron.
Yeah. And also, like Brian said, the content's still coming, right? So you could subscribe, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. These beat writer interviews, Ben and I are going to go deep. We're going to ask the questions that these beat writers, I've had many times. Go back through the history of beat writer interviews we've done over the last couple of summers. I get a lot of good question. Oh, that's a good question, Elon. So, that's what I live for when I'm doing these interviews, right? So if you want to hear my good questions and some very good answers, because we pick up the cream of the crop of who will accept our invites. So, we try to pick out the cream of the crop and then, take what we can get. But yeah, we've had some really awesome interviews and we plan to continue it. So make sure to subscribe to Keeping Karlsson. But also, forget about the summer. Good luck next week for everyone still in their playoffs. I hope you do amazingly. Feel free to tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson if you have advice questions, or come hang out in our Discord. It's the beginning of April right now, so even if you want to sign up as a patron for $1 right now, and then you're like, I don't even want to pay $1, just cancel by the end of April, and then you paid nothing, but you got to come and ask Brian and I advice questions and all of our smart patrons. So come hang out. And I just wish everyone the best of luck. I hope that we've helped guide you, and at this point, it's probably more in luck's hands than in our hands, but we're happy to try to help if we can. Brian, great job as always. I really enjoyed this show, but I think now it's time to cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Tyler, Flash, Andrea, Tom, Derek, David, Rob, and Patty. Thank you to our Cupful coordinator, Kevin A. Bear, and our team of co-commissioners. Thanks to Shams Benamor and you, Elon, for keeping the amazing stream of fantasy news rolling on GameDayTweets.com and the 3 essential Twitter accounts at Game Day Lines, at Game Day News NHL, and at Game Day Goalies. Remember to tune into Short Shifts and follow Ben Lewis through the week at Short Shifts KK, and listen to Dave Betton's NHL Stream Scheme. Follow the show notes for that, and follow Dave on Twitter at NHL Stream Scheme. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Cupful semifinalist, BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by
my
Pat
opponent,
Roach.
Brian.
Elon's opponent, the guy who stands in the way of Elon becoming an ultimate champion, BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Biz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, NBC Sports Edge, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. People are going to be happy to hear Lewis back on Short Shifts over the rest of this week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to hear how Lewis's vacation went and also to hear his takes on everything going on. And then Brian and I will be back with another episode next Sunday, so make sure you're subscribed like I said. And Brian, I need some good words of wisdom for you because I'm going up against Brandon trying to achieve my dreams here. So what should I do while I fight it out against Brandon in the couple Tier 1 semifinals?
While you do that and aspire for your dreams, remember that there are many people with dreams of fantasy hockey glory. So we need to make sure that we do all we can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone who wants to achieve those same dreams as you.
Agreed. I'm not going to keep that in. It's okay. I'm not going to say keep the agreed. Make it so. What was that movie? There was some movie where there was some emperor or something that was like, make it so. Oh no, maybe that's Star Trek actually. Is that Captain Picard? Does he say make it so?
I think it was Little Big League.
It was Little Big League. Can I spoil it? For anyone that's watching the YouTube.
I haven't watched it yet.
Well, maybe after chatting about it, Brian, can I spoil it or do you want to go watch it?
No, I'm sure it's spoiled within the first 30 seconds. It's a mid-90s movie for kids.
No, I'm going to spoil the ending.
No, I know, but I'm sure you could figure it out within the first.
No, well, okay. I was not traumatized, but okay. I remember this again. This is a movie that had I remember it well, and it actually had an ending where last chance. Okay, everyone, you gotta go. They lost. And he made the team good, and then they were like going for, they were like only had to win one more game to win the pennant. Also, by the way, all these movies about baseball that I watched as a kid was always about the team trying to win the pennant, and I never knew what that was. Like, I followed real baseball, and it was about like trying to win the World Series. It was kind of like the goal. You make the playoffs, and then you try to win the World Series, or you could win the American League or the National League. I never even knew what win the pennant means, and I feel like no commentator in any baseball game I ever watched talked about the pennant. But anyways, in these movies, it was all about the teams trying to win the pennant. And then it was actually I believe it was Ken Griffey Jr., so the player on Minnesota, the team that this kid took over and led them to be good, hit like a ball. He needed like a home run or whatever to win the game, and the guy hit it, and it was like far, like it was gonna be a home run. And then Ken Griffey Jr. like jumped and did a catch, stopping a home run like over the fence. It was heartbreaking. It was like, Ken Griffey Jr. ruined it.
I was waiting for like a gruesome injury to happen, but so just like the feel good didn't happen.
Yeah, it was like the end of Rocky. It's like, come on. Oh, sorry to spoil Rocky, but it's like I thought for a kids movie you'd make it happen. It's also, didn't that happen in Mighty Ducks? They won, right? I feel like there was a Mighty Ducks movie where they lost also. Maybe I'm wrong.
They did lose a bunch, but I can't remember. I don't think any movie ended on a loss.
Well, all these movies start with like them losing every game.
Yeah.
And then they like learn to, this kid was like so smart about baseball and helped them become a good baseball team.
One that wasn't mentioned that I think deserves mention in the chat, Little Giants. For that.
What's that one?
It's a football one.
Oh, I was more into the baseball movies. But yeah, okay. Little Giants is good. I mean, you
don't even know it.
I just wanted to fun. I was just trying to be fun. Mystery Alaska, they lose. Yeah. Oh, Friday Night Lights. Okay. You mean like the Friday Night Lights movie,
alert.
Or like the last season? Michael B. Jordan was in the last season of Friday Night Lights.
Rosebud is a slut. I didn't see. I didn't get all the way through Friday Night Lights.
The show?
I got through like 4 seasons. I loved it. It was great. But I ran out of steam.
Dina and I, for a while, would call, like, anytime we'd open a bottle of wine, we'd be like, we're going to have a Mrs. Coach night. Just seemed like every scene of her, she was drinking a glass of wine. But now we've changed that. Now that's more like do you ever watch Euphoria? Probably not. It's a really crazy show.
I
but
don't
like
know what that is.
it's a show that's on Crave right now. But there's a mom that's like an alcoholic, but like kind of in a fun, like normally alcoholics are like not funny in these like drama shows, but she's actually kind of funny. She's just like kind of drunk all the time, always holding a glass of wine and saying funny things to her daughters. I don't know. We should do a bracket in the summer.
In a loss.
What if we do a show of all the funniest characters that are holding wine glasses all the time from pop culture? Okay. All the funniest wine.
I won't know any of them, but like if you compile them, I'll happily weigh in.
Okay, well if you don't know them, it's hard. I guess unless I could describe them all to you.
Fancy Tidbits, by the way, mentions this is not the first time you spoiled Rocky on the podcast.
Okay. Sorry. It's a good movie. That's another formative movie for me. A lot more so actually than Little Big League. I saw that one when I was a little bit older. But yeah, Rookie of the Year. Remember how Rookie of the Year ended? I remember that one really well also.
I need to see the poster for Rookie of the
Year. Was it like Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Like, or like some like really,
it was a guy who like looks like,
no, it wasn't him. It was the guy from
kid.
It was the guy from American Pie that went on to be like one of the main guys in American Pie.
Oh, really?
Was the kid in Rookie of the Year.
And
his like arm, he like injured his arm, and then he was able to throw like the best fastballs. But then like right before the final batter or something, he like re-injured his arm, which like fixed his arm or something, some weird shit. And then like all of a sudden now he couldn't throw super fast fastballs again. And so then like the first pitch, the guy, like the batter like swung and missed because he was expecting like a fastball, and it was like so slow that he just like swung super fast. So then he was like ready for the second pitch. It was like this big mean guy. And the second pitch came and he like hit it like so far, but it was like a foul ball. So then it was like now the third pitch was like for sure gonna be that this guy's gonna crush it, right? Because now it's just like a kid pitching to him. And then he did like some like a floater, like he just kind of threw the ball up in the air because like that's what his mom did when she played. I remember this so well. It's crazy how well I remember this. But like, yeah, he threw like a floater pitch up into the air, and then the movie was like slow motion, and the batter I remember was like licking his lips, like I'm gonna get this one, and then he like swung and missed, and he struck him out. Oh yeah,
Okay,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in Angels in the Outfield. That's a good one too.
next to Air Bud.
Air Bud is basketball. I don't want to talk about the basketball movies or football. Only baseball.
There is a baseball Air Bud.
There is
seventh inning fetch.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
And of course is wearing an Angels cap. Like every baseball movie has to be the Angels.
Well, Minnesota Twins was Little Big League.
And Chicago Cubs.
It's really funny that Fantasy Tidbits, like a patron cast where I just described movies. I once actually got so I once went to this like work retreat and we were having some drinks and I ended up like describing the whole plot of Back to the Future to someone that hadn't seen the movie. And by the end, like I had like a crowd around me and I was just telling like beat by beat of the whole movie. And it's like some people still mention it. Like I have friends that still mention like the time that I told the whole story of Back to the Future. So I could do that show.
The time, I think it's multiple.
Well, this took like 30 minutes.
Well, Elon does have a Survivor. If you like listening to Elon talk about things.
Oh Survivor. Yeah, we recorded it today with Ben, Dina, and my friend Julia. It's called Survivor Squad. So it's on Apple Podcasts and Google now. If you want to hear, we should have a patron movie night. We should do a lot of things.
We should do so many things.
Someone needs to volunteer to like organize these things.
Yeah.
And then I just want to show up.
You need to wrangle. Yeah. Like we need to be wrangled too. Like you need to plan the whole thing. Tell us when to show up, what link to click or where to be.
But like, we'll do stuff for you. Like you could say like in exchange, I want blah. And then Brian and I will discuss and be like, all right, that sounds reasonable. And then, whatever you tell us what you want from us, but I can't plan a movie night. I don't know. I'm moving on Wednesday, but I'd like to go to one.
You can plan a moving night.
Yeah.
Do you know where you're getting your pizza on your move night?
I don't know if we were.
Yeah, if someone wants to arrange a Jackbox night, I feel like,
all right, anyway, I guess we should probably head out, but this has been a blast. Brian, I gotta go still record this HelloFresh ad. I should get Dina in here to go do that. Do people want to hang out? Should I leave the live show going?
Live? All right. I'd watch.
Well, do you want
I'm just going to do the write-up for the show.
All right, so if people want to hang out, the show's over, though. Like, you could leave if you want. If you want, I'll go see if it's available now. 1 sec. I'll be back in a sec.
If anyone has questions in the chat in the meantime, I will keep one eye on it and happily answer. I can't summarize movies, unfortunately, because I have no memory. Books, movies, TV, I watch it. I'm in the moment. That's pretty much it. I might be able to tell you about The Sandlot, but it wouldn't be entertaining. I'm not a good storyteller. So I think that would be bad for everybody. But I'd happily answer hockey things. My favorite movie. Okay.
Hey, so Dina's going to be here in like 5 minutes to do the ad.
Okay. My favorite movie, the answer my whole life has been like, and I haven't updated it since I was like 17. So Rat Race and Office Space and The Shawshank Redemption. Those are like, I feel like you can't have a new favorite movie like once you exit a certain part of your life.
Yeah, like, I know. Oh, you're talking to me? Yeah, I know. I feel the same thing. It's hard to like, because I feel like we had these movies when we were growing up that we just watched over and over again. Yeah. And now that we're adults, like we have lives. Like even if I see a movie I really like, I'm not gonna like rewatch it. So it's hard for it to like rise up.
Yeah, it can't make the same impact on you as it when like you're not as impressionable, and it's not like the first time you're seeing anything or feeling anything. So
the last movie, I think the most recent movie that I saw a bunch of times and just like was obsessed with is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which was like around 2010, I think. Or I loved that movie so much. Like I just couldn't get enough of it.
I remember you had like fridge magnets or something, didn't you?
It's just like such a great movie. Just like every minute, I'm like, that's one of those movies where I'm just like laughing and smiling the whole time. I'm just having the best time. I used to love Michael Cera. Everything he did cracked me up. I saw all of his movies.
Have you heard about like the story on Twitter where like he goes places and says like, I know, he goes like, I don't know, he's like buying a ticket for something. He's like, I know, like, don't say anything. Please don't say anything about who I am. And like the guy doesn't actually care. Like, just, like leads with that. And apparently like wasn't the only time. He doesn't
That's
have a
funny.
good, some celebs have like a good like in public rep. He's not one of them. Fantasy tidbits wants my latest take on Jakub Voracek.
He was on a streak for a while. He was getting points almost every game.
He has 5 goals this season, and
Yeah, he's not a goal scorer. He was brought in to dish to Laine, and that's
he
it.
came to set up Patrick Laine, but you'd think he might luck into a couple more goals than like for comparison, he takes about the same number of shots as Tanner Jeannot, but Tanner Jeannot is a 20-goal player, and Voracek has 5. 14 goals for Voracek in his last like 110
How many of
120 games.
How many of his goals were him like trying to pass to Laine, but then it went off the defenseman's skate and just went into the net?
Yeah, or empty netters. Huge power play production. I guess.
Hey guys, Dina's here.
Hi.
Hey Dina.
Yeah, I don't think you need headphones because we're just reading an ad. But I guess if you want to hear what Brian said, well, I'll just like transcribe. Brian said hi. You could get your headphones. Actually, yeah, I have the split.
Just to finish the Voracek take. I honestly, I don't see much changing like on him for as long as he's playing with Patrick Laine, and until like he's older. He'll turn 33 in the off season, but not so old that he can't keep being like a 65 point player. Plays a huge role on the power play, which is what he did in his best years in Philly. So that's my take. I know he's been a little colder lately, but I wouldn't give up on him. Everyone on Columbus is just racking up minuses. Like if I were in a league that had plus minus, first I'd quit it. But if I couldn't quit it, then I would make sure to try not to have Columbus goals.
All right. So with that, I can't believe people are still here. You guys are the best. But I guess now Dina and I are gonna read an ad.
We're not gonna read it. We're going to improvise like the best in the biz.
Well, sure. I mean, we have they do want us to choose 2 talking points, but I'll take care of the talking points and I'll throw it to you to do the improv part.
I'm prepared.
Oh, you're prepared. Should I just leave it to you? Okay, I'm gonna throw to you like right away then, if you want.
No, you go for
it. Let's do take one. Let's see how it
Dina
goes.
has memorized the notes.
Okay, here we go. I sent it to her earlier.
Yeah, I know the points to address. I can even tell them to you right now, but it's not a pop quiz, even though Brian is a teacher.
I don't do pop quizzes. They're not
Brian,
fair.
do you think
that's ethical of you? I appreciate that.
Do you think Dina would sound better if she how does I think you should lean in a little bit closer to the
Elon
microphone.
is very anal
You tried to put that on me, Brian. Don't you think?
Well, you're here. You could hear her.
Do you think
it's
Dina
not
should
a
lean in more?
Familial dispute. Just how do I sound to you?
Yeah, how does it sound? How does this sound?
Dina, I think you should be closer.
Okay. All right. Let's start the ad. Here we go. I should have something ready to say. Okay. Could you ever imagine planning out your fantasy week by just let me start this over. Okay, let me think of something. I'll just go boring. Okay. This episode of Keeping Karlsson is brought to you in part by our friends over at HelloFresh. That's right, HelloFresh, that company where they send you boxes of food and the ingredients. That company where they send you boxes of ingredients and instructions, and you're able to just turn them into these amazing meals. My wife Dina and I have been using it forever. Amazing results. We just had this tortellini today, which was delicious. And here is actually my wife Dina to tell you about how much she's enjoyed using HelloFresh.
Okay, hi guys. Here's the thing about HelloFresh that you may not realize. So Elon is... You might think like, oh, Elon is the best. He's probably good at everything because he's like slaying all his hockey podcasts and pools and whatnot.
Tier 1 of the cupful,
yeah. Yeah, all of the above. But
my Dynasty League.
Okay, this is my ad. So the thing with Elon is like there are things he does not like to do and then he just doesn't care for them. So a big contentious issue for us used to be like meal planning. Like, oh my God, it's a new week. Like, what are we going to eat? And then Q and HelloFresh, like problem literally solved. Elon is not like a kitchen whiz by any means, does not enjoy like coming up with recipes and executing them. But with HelloFresh, he loves it. Like, honest to goodness, like the ingredients are there, the instructions are there. He's in his zone. He's cooking the meal. It's amazing every time. The ingredients are fresh. They're coming into us. They're seasonal. They're delicious. The variety of recipes is amazing. So we're pescatarian, so we kind of mix and match some veggie options, which they're always more than what we can even pick for a week, and then like a fish or seafood option that we can also bring in. And I gotta say, like, I'm sold. It's like I used to be the main cook of the house. Now it's Elon, just like churning out these delicious recipes day in, day out. And I'm just like, okay, keep going. This is great.
All right, so if you want to have an impressed partner like I do, then check out HelloFresh. And if you think that even what you've heard isn't enough, we even have a special offer for the listeners of Keeping Karlsson. If you go to HelloFresh.com/KeepingK16 and use code KeepingK16, you're going to get 16 free meals for free. You try it out for free. How about that? And 3 free gifts. So again, that's HelloFresh.com/KeepingK16. Dina, thanks so much for coming on to do this ad with me.
Thanks for having me, and keep those meals coming. They're great. You're great.
Wow.
We did it. The
That
only
was
problem
awesome.
is this like link doesn't work. Hopefully it'll work like by
Which
tomorrow.
we've mentioned a couple times.
Yeah.
Josie has said, like, as like, so we've been like, fortunately, because we're doing some ads for HelloFresh, we get some HelloFresh delivered as part of like, so we can speak to our experiences with it. And like Josie, the last box that came, she was just like, so she's like, all your years of doing the podcast are worth it, because we've received these 3 boxes at like critical times in our life. Like every time that like I was mad, like annoyed, or like you were too busy with this or all the hard work. Like I don't care about anything except these HelloFresh boxes that are coming.
I like super agree. If all your payments were in like those HelloFresh boxes, I'll be like, yes, please keep them coming. Like I want a life supply of these boxes.
We could just use the money that we get to buy, like, Brian, maybe this is a sign that you should have not been so stingy with your podcast earnings and just bought some of these boxes.
Who's to say I'm stingy with my podcast earnings?
Well, I don't know. Josie's like, finally I get something good. You should have like,
well, I haven't been able to
your...
I haven't been able to enjoy my podcast earnings to the full extent.
Oh, right.
Because of a certain friend of mine.
Well, okay, if you take the money out of the bank, you have to pay taxes on it. Then Obama takes 50%. Who wants that?
Okay, here's a pitch for an off-season podcast. Wives.
All ads.
That's actually a really
we'll make so much money.
It's like the $1 Million homepage. Do you remember that? Where it was like 1 million pixels and each pixel was $1.
Oh,
and like
ads.
The guy became a millionaire. And then there were a bunch of, so we could do that in podcast form.
We'll tell Blue Wire, reach out to every single advertiser you have. We're doing a bonus episode of all ads.
I would listen just to hear how you could possibly include all the ads and make me want to keep listening.
Okay, challenge accepted. I feel like it would be so fun. It's like we'll sprinkle in all these like little fun stories from our lives that are super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put like work into the ads, like to try to tie them all to like make it relatable and like related to fantasy or something.
Ridiculous segues. It doesn't have to be related to fantasy. Like this is like a standalone venture potentially.
Okay, but back to my pitch.
I thought this was an episode of Keeping
Latest
Karlsson.
Stage capitalism.
Okay, Dina's actual pitch.
Okay, definitely back to my pitch that I still try to distract me. Okay, Wife's AMA. Like, trust me, there's like gold content. Like, remember how you asked me which era I want to go back to? Like, plenty more where that came from. I'm probably like more emotionally well now that COVID is like behaving a little more. So maybe not as crazy answers, but who knows? Like,
okay, well, we could test it out right now. If anyone in the chat has a question for Dina.
Okay, well, there are still people. Like, how many people are you?
I can't imagine. I'm sure they're like doing other things, and this is just in the background at this point. I mean, are there any
they
games?
should go back to their families. This is
that's Dina projecting. on what Elon should be doing after each episode.
What am I What are you, Tory, right now, Brian?
Tori from Survivor? Oh,
Yeah.
projecting.
Oh.
Brian, I might not be up to date. Brian's like always like a couple
Oh.
episodes behind.
I'm like
Okay.
3 weeks behind right now, I think.
Classic.
And like
Okay.
I never learn their names anyway until there's like 6 left.
Okay, great. So it's not even a spoiler. Don't
Brian
No,
just
I-
listened to my short shifts episode I did with Lewis in January. He sent me a message being like, that was
And it was
Okay,
great.
So Brian, since you have like capacity to listen to podcasts that Elon produces, then you should definitely listen to our Survivor Squad podcast. That's a recap of the current Survivor season. On Sundays, Elon, Ben Burnett, the great Ben Burnett, our dear friend Julia Mainwald, and I are reviewing the episodes. This is top-notch content. We're dropping those
Yeah.
takes that you wouldn't even think of, but that's okay because you just listen to us drop them. You're like, yes, that's good.
Once I'm caught up. The thing is I don't know.
He doesn't want to get spoiled on Survivor.
I don't know when at what like do you say what show you're talking
Yeah, the
what
episode
you're
title.
talking
It's the
about?
number of the
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
we're reviewing, Brian. It's very
Okay.
simple.
We made it
no
easy for you.
brainer.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is evergreen content. People will be able to listen to this in years, and it'll still be good.
Why is Brian also saying things in the chat while we're like talking?
Okay, you know what? That's a good question.
Thank you.
There are times when I'm doing
No
a
setup
whole
required.
talking about a whole thing, and then afterwards Brian is like, "Sorry, what was that?" And then I look and I see he's been writing like a novel
Elon,
in the
you're
chat.
in the chat too. We both do it.
I know.
There's
It's
there's
fun.
an episode like a week or two ago where I was really mad.
You were mad
were
at
like-
me?
You were in this other chat like every single time you stopped talking. You were
Okay.
like smirking, like typing away at something, and then you weren't sure what I said.
That was like one time in
Yeah.
that episode. I remember.
it was several times within the one episode.
Oh, no.
Okay, so Brian, I'm just confused. Like we're chatting, and then you're saying which era in the chat.
Oh,
even
because
though-
Matthew asked which air, like he
Oh,
didn't.
oh,
He was
oh.
asking.
Okay,
I was
got it.
just
Sorry.
clarifying.
Okay,
So
perfect.
from a patron cast, for anyone unfamiliar, there was a question like if you could travel back to any point in time, like what point would you choose? And Dina said World War II. Like
What was
in
the reason
middle.
again?
Like, so I would be still in Canada, obviously, not in like Nazi Germany. But just you gotta go back to your roots. Just like
Why are your
live-
roots?
Your roots are in
like,
World War II.
in Canada.
Yes, I barely made it here, and so did both of you. Like, you should be thankful.
But does that,
Oh, I guess I kind of get it.
what,
Elon is still processing. Months later, he still didn't understand.
So like, what? I should go visit like my great grandmother or something, and like,
Yeah.
what
I
about,
would,
What about
like-
other major world tragedies? Should we go back to each one of them so we can be thankful that we survived them?
No, this one is crucial, Brian. Trust me. Like, we barely made it out. So this one is like a key to visit.
to be fair, if you are Jewish, like growing up and going to Hebrew school, like you spend a lot of time learning about World War II. So I guess that's like
Well,
why that's
yes,
the most
specifically the
significant one.
Holocaust. Everyone knows you guys are Jewish, right? To contextualize in case someone just led.
Yeah.
It's out
In
there.
case you're just joining now, this is Keeping Carlson post-show recap. It's 10:30 p.m. on a Sunday. We're gonna have pizza.
No
Really?
one's gonna get this. This is such a deep reference.
Okay, if you want to get this reference, you should listen to Survivor Squad. Shameless plug.
Dina, we have a question for
Okay,
you.
finally, thank you, James. Finally, someone wants to hear what I have to say. And I have to say, I have a lot of stuff to say.
You want to know
Okay.
something funny? I came out from recording the podcast as Dina if she wants to do the ad, and she was asleep. And now, well, she's like all amped up.
Dina's awake and amped up.
Okay, now I understand, Elon. Okay, here's what you need. Let me just paint a picture for you, and then I'll answer the noodle question. Hopefully, James is still around. If not, I guess he'll never know, but it's okay. Okay, just spoiler, it's Cascatelli. I'll loop back to elaborate on it.
Brian's gonna again. By the way, you're gonna talk about Cascatelli, and Brian's gonna be
Is this
like,
the sporkful thing?
Yeah, it
he'll be
is.
like, "Oh, I was planning on listening to that."
I listened to the first episode.
Okay, but it's not a spoiler. Okay, fine. It's a spoiler
Have you had?
then.
So you've had it? You bought a box?
Yes. No, I'll tell you. Okay, but sorry, I need to paint a picture first of like how my Sunday is. Trust me, it's worthwhile. So Elon emerges on like Sunday around like this time from the bedroom. So he records in the bedroom. So I'm like hanging out in the living room, and I'm usually like sleepy by then. It's like prime almost bedtime. 10:30 p.m. I'm like cuddled in my little, like blankie. I have my like podcast on, whatever, to drown out like Elon's like very vibrant voice. And so I'm just like very much like coming down, and Elon is like coming up, and so he's like opening the doors. Oh, it's like he's like open, It's
Like Kramer?
Yes, exactly like that. And he's like so amped up, and there's like so much energy, and I'm like so the opposite, and it's like very hard to reconcile. Like I almost like, next time you should like maybe go for like a run or like I don't know something, because he's just like, you need to kind of make the energy like match. Otherwise, it's just like it's very difficult. So every time I'm just like, I can't handle you right now. You need to like
So that's why I need to
find
bring
a
you in
different outlet.
here at the end of the show.
So now I'm realizing like this is the way for me to match Elon. It's like Elon is always just trying to make me into his like mini me. So like this is like another way for him, instead of like him matching me. Is like, no, come here, then you'll get amped up, which I am now. So it's working.
What are we gonna do? I still have to edit the podcast though. I
Are
can't.
you gonna calm back down to like go to rest again now that you're so amped up?
Nah, I'll be fine.
Brian, how about you? Are you usually like full of energy after the podcast, or are you more like dead and ready to go to bed?
No, well, I'm dead at the start, and then I get excited during the exact time of the podcast, and then I go back to dead.
Brian liked my intro. He said that it gave him energy. So that made me feel good.
No, Elon, I gotta say, it's like, love you and everything, but like hearing your voice is like so excited, just like reverberating through the walls for like 2 hours. Like I have to drown it out. It's
You're
like,
gonna miss it in your new home.
No, I'm gonna not. I'm actually going to have such a great experience. We're moving, and so I'm going to be on a separate floor. Oh, I like can't wait. I'm gonna be able to take a shower at the same time as Elon's record. I'm gonna have a life, It's like I'm gonna be like able to do like I'm gonna be free.
You won't just be sleeping on the couch.
Now I'm like a prisoner of war, okay? Just like on, I have a blanket and I have headphones. That's probably more than what prisoners get. Anyways,
it depends what country.
Well, yeah. Okay, back to Cascatelli real quick. So I listened to the whole It's important. First of all, highly recommend Sporkful in general, and there's like a 5-part series about the creator of Sporkful, Dan Pashman. He like goes on this quest to create like the perfect pasta shape. So it's like it has like tooth syncability, forkability, and sauceability. I won't go into all the details, but suffice to say, he creates this like pasta shape. It's called Cascatelli.
I feel like eating this pasta is like being a vegan. Like you just can't stop talking about it.
It's okay. It's worth the hype. All right. There are a few things in life that I'm passionate about, and no, I will not shut up about them ever.
But I would never ask you to. I would never dream of that.
Thank you. So back to Cascatelli. Anyway, it's amazing. So it's actually like, so it's produced in the States. Sorry, Brian, I'm like totally spoiling the whole thing.
Brian doesn't even want to hear it, I think.
It's okay. Spoil me.
Probably James doesn't want to hear it.
How much of a spoiler can it be? Isn't it like, basically it's like, yeah, they got to this shape. And then like, if I want to hear the process, I can listen to the thing.
Okay. So I won't tell you what the shape is. Unless like some Italian, you might be able to guess what it kind of looks like. But anyway, so it's produced.
Isn't it so funny? It's like Dina and I are the same, right? Because before Dina came in, I was describing movies that I watched, and now Dina's describing podcasts that she listened to.
Okay, no, this is interesting because it's an experience. It's not just like I'm relaying back what I heard on the podcast. Anyway, it's very expensive to order it here, and it's like and you need to back order like months in advance, whatever, and then it's like shipping is so expensive from the States because they're like a small operation, whatever. Totally reasonable, but disappointing. So then we go visit our friends in New York, and we didn't even talk about this podcast. So I didn't even realize they knew about it. And then our freaking first meal, our good friend Jeff Handy, fun fact, husband of our dear friend Julia Meinwald, who we recorded the Survivor Squad podcast with, which you should all tune into. Okay, makes us this like amazing meal with cascatelli pasta and like shrimp and like this like cream sauce. Oh my god, like if it wasn't for the fact that we were in New York and wanted to eat like 5,000 things every day, I would just like eat that fucking pasta. Sorry, I'm swearing out loud on whatever.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter, it's not recorded. Okay, so okay,
This is recorded on YouTube.
Forever.
sorry, I swore. I apologize. I
To
got
who?
excited.
Brian is like right now acting cool, then afterwards he's gonna message me being like, Elon, can you just edit out that swear?
It's not on the show. Hey,
So-
it's your professional future.
One time I said your
I
daughter's
swear at
name.
work too. They're familiar with my personality.
One time I said Brian's daughter's name on the
Oh,
YouTube,
no.
not even on the show, and then I
That's-
went in and edited the YouTube, and Google like it makes it so hard. Like you make it.
I didn't
first of
even
all-
tell you to. It was very nice of you. I wasn't gonna just
Oh, okay.
for the
Well, I
record.
didn't want to.
I
But
appreciate
you would
it.
have like harped some mild resentment, right? Like, why would he do that?
Oh, it was
It was
just
a
like,
mistake.
you know,
It's not something that you want to put out there.
these things eventually will happen. So.
We say Cody's name all the time, but also it's like she has no future. Let's be real.
She's adorable.
She's a
right now
loser.
she's just eating her own.
Oh yeah, do you want to see
paw.
what
It's
she's up
great.
to?
No, no need to show. Oh my god.
Eating her
please.
own
Can
puh
we
was
not
concerning. I'm glad it ended it
show
with an
all our
ah.
Dogs do that
literally
kind of
all our
thing.
dirty laundry here. No one needs to see that.
Brian, want to hear a deep cut? But I'll keep it quick because I don't want to bore Dina. But another player I have on my Dynasty League team
Oh, back
who
to
no one's heard
hockey.
of that's really helpful is Will Borgen on Seattle. Has 4 hits today. So
Wow.
and he's a shot and a block and he's +1.
You must be thrilled.
Okay, I see a question in the chat. So back to that.
This is my
I'm
co-manager Matthew, the one I'm always
I'm
talking to.
familiar. Yes, your best bud you've never met and probably
I've met
never
him.
will. Oh.
We had drinks at
At my
Brian's
house.
last time I went to Ottawa.
Oh, Ottawa bro. Okay, great. I wasn't sure. So, okay, sorry, Matthew. I wasn't there, so it's as if like
Mathieu.
Yeah.
All right, so his
apologize.
question.
Okay.
His friends
Um,
call him Maddie, just so you know.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna call him.
No, I'm like Elon. It's like I'm gonna use the full name, kind of like when Elon sometimes even uses the full first and last name to refer to people. Like I take people's names very seriously. I'm not
You're
about
saying
that
you say,
shortness.
so do I. I call
Yeah.
them what they want to be called.
Great. So do I. So
Part of being
okay,
inclusive.
it's not that I'm gonna give Elon his own room. Like we co-owned a house, so he definitely, earned his share of room usage. But yes, Elon will have his own office where he'll be doing work and recording his podcast and getting amped up about his hockey pool and playing video games. Like I may not see Elon anymore. Like we used to hang out a lot. We may not anymore because
Yeah, the big debate right now is we have this really good TV, an OLED LG that we paid like too much for because I wanted to have a really good TV to play Horizon Zero Dawn 2 on. But now I'm thinking I want to play video games in my office, because that's, then Dina could still do stuff in the main area. Anyway, so I want to bring the OLED to the office, but it's like obviously the main room, Dina obviously wants to have a nice TV for when we watch TV. So we have to decide if I get to bring
Here's
the
the
OLED
thing
to the
about
office or if we buy a new one or what
Elon.
we do.
Elon wants nice things, and I'm like, I don't care. So I get all of Elon's hand-me-downs. But with the TV, I'm kind of invested. I'm kind of like, why should you get the nice TV? Like, I like TV equally a lot. Like with other technology and such, I'm like,
I feel like when we got the TV, you were like, I don't even notice a difference.
okay, but now I have eyes, so I see, and I will not go back.
Okay,
You
fair.
didn't
Yeah,
have
that's the
eyes
thing.
before.
It's almost like you.
Not in the same way, Brian. I
Once you
didn't.
see something great, it's hard to forget it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
TV belongs in the main room, but Elon wants like the nice TV to be in like the office, and then some shitty TV that he wants.
No,
like,
I want to
some
buy
good-
another nice
Yeah,
TV, but then Dina's like, we're not buying another. We're not spending
Okay,
that much on
I
another.
don't want to say how much it costs because it's too
Let's just say that now that Patreon is $1 a month, it's gonna
What's
take
the
a long
sec-
time to make.
What's
money
what's
to
the
buy that
second
TV.
digit?
Oh, it's like Price is Right.
Yeah.
I don't 6.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Dina, what's your favorite movie?
Okay, so I'm like, or more so even than Elon, I do not rewatch things ever, except Dawson's Creek back in my youth. Like, so I guess there are movies that I like, but I'll never know. Yeah, Saving Private. That was a good movie. I don't know.
Dina loves World
Shawshank
War II.
Redemption was really good.
Brian said Shawshank Redemption is his favorite
It's a
movie.
great movie. It's just like all about perseverance. It's like suffer, 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 and like you'll have your comeuppance eventually. I feel like it's a very good moral of the story, if I were to have one. Yeah.
Okay, so Shawshank Redemption. I'll co-sign. That's a good one.
The problem is like I thought that Tom Cruise was or Tom Hanks was in it, which he wasn't. So I feel like I should rewatch this movie that I claim to be my favorite.
Yeah, Tim Robbins.
They look
He's not that
alike,
famous,
right?
I guess a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you, Dina, do you have a favorite 90s sports movie?
Yes, Love and Basketball. I feel like was so great. I think that's not that. Yeah, that's definitely 90s, right? We watched it actually just recently, but I don't think I've ever watched Little Big League.
We should watch it this weekend.
Elon made me watch the one about baseball and dads, like
Field of
Field of
Dreams.
Dreams, which apparently only men appreciate. Like I get to like that extent because it's like about your father-son relationships. I was like, it's fine.
I liked Field of Dreams.
Yeah, Elon was like getting emotional about it. Elon doesn't get emotional ever, and I'm
That's
like,
cute.
I don't. Yeah, which is that's nice, but I it's Love and Basketball for me, 100%.
All right. Brian, I'm surprised you're like still here. Don't you usually need to go after?
I'm
we're
working in the
having
back end. I
fun.
actually was just thinking if it like how would it like is there a not rude way to leave?
I think we could go. I have to still edit this thing, so
Yeah,
I think
we
it's
should
probably
probably-
good for all
But
of
I
us.
want to be clear. I was just thinking that now. I hadn't been thinking it the whole time.
I didn't even think
It's been a
that
pleasure.
you did think that.
Well, once
so
again, Brian,
no
I
need
mentioned to you.
Even.
I mentioned that we're going to Ottawa in April, the weekend of the 14th
We have a
or
date
whatever.
picked. Do you remember? And
Yes.
Oh, we already
are
picked
you
a day?
recording
It's
the
in my
podcast live
calendar.
or something?
On the Sunday, right? Or no, you said Saturday.
Do I have
don't
to
know,
watch
it's in
the
my calendar.
podcast to hang
Okay.
out with you guys, or
I don't know, we have
is
to
that
figure
like
it
a
out.
prerequisite?
If there's anyone in Ottawa that weekend, though, like hit us up.
This is
Right.
definitely the best place to put that out there.
Well, Matthew is going to be
If
there.
any,
maybe.
yeah. So if you're speaking directly to Matthew, then you can...
Okay.
I only want to hang out with Matthew if we win
No,
in the
I
finals.
also want to give a personal shout out to James, who
Oh,
cares
no, I
enough
made
to ask me
plans for that night.
questions. Hush, Brian. I'm giving James a shout out.
Elon, I'll be free after 7:30 on Friday,
what?
April 15th.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the date we picked.
All right.
I committed to a Seder on the 1st. So.
Yeah, we get it. You're a Jew. We
Mm.
have 5 satyrs too. Like you're not impressing anyone here. Like
I'm
we
not.
all,
I was
we
actually
all
feeling.
hate it. Okay,
Okay.
don't. You know what? Don't.
What's
just
going
don't-
on? What happened? I just said I had a sitter.
Dina hates you now.
I hate
Like-
Passover with a passion.
It's
Like,
very
please.
boring. You know what? You know
No,
what I'd
it's
like
worse
to
than
do?
boring. It's
I'd like to
evil.
pass over Passover. Am
Okay.
I right?
Yes, please. Where do I subscribe to that? It's like you'd think with that small little pamphlet, it would be over so soon. But no, it just keeps going.
No,
for
because
like
no one
3
knows
hours.
it. And every year you have to remember, okay, what do we do here again? And like who's gonna say this part? It's like rereading a speech for once a year, and you always forget the parts of the
Which
speech.
is what like
You remember it
the
as you go,
Torah
and then you
is,
go
is
back
all
into it.
about. It's like you read the book over and over. That's like all about religious texts. They love just like reciting the same thing in like a cyclical way, right? Like that's kind
Right,
of
you
how
read the
it
same
works.
book. That's
Yeah.
your favorite
Then
book.
they celebrate that they finish reading the book and they're like rah rah. Then they start over.
It's kind of like me with Scott Pilgrim versus the World when it came out. I just wanted to keep watching it over and over again. So it's kind of like how you reread the Torah every year.
Anyways, if anyone here like loves Passover or like is more in tune with their Jewish roots. That's cool. Hey, I said I would go to World War II, okay? There's no more
There you go.
metal than that.
You know,
it's
my
like,
opponent-
I
You sitting
still
through
don't
some,
really
like,
understand that.
You know, my opponent in
worry.
the couple next week
Just like-
is.
I'm so Jewish, I'd go back to World War II.
I don't get it either. My opponent in the couple next week is actually very religious with a different religion. So
Who?
it's
Sorry.
a battle of
What are we talking about?
battle of religions. The person
Whose
who
God
I'm playing
will
a couple
prevail?
next week. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
Okay, let's
I once got
fast
anyway.
forward through
All right.
that.
Bye. Okay, so I guess let's head out. Bye everyone. Thanks for
Bye,
you liked
Brian.
this.
Bye.
It's been a
Team
pleasure.
Karlsson fam. Thanks for joining us and tune in next week.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, wait, I haven't actually stopped it yet.